Chapter 117. Your Majesty, please allow me to personally lead the Nanfu army into Mingshui and fight against the southern barbarians. The light flickered, and the sound of rain hitting the ground could be heard. The young man bowed. After a while, Emperor Wenshuan said slowly, "Do you know what you are saying? The southern barbarians bullied the people of the Central Plains. Now that my father is dead, I am willing to carry on my father's legacy and enter the southern barbarians again to take back Mingshui." Emperor Wenshuan did not speak, but Su Jingfu spoke first. He said, "Second young Master Xiao, although I can understand your grief and anger at the passing of General Guangwu, leading the army into battle is not something that can be done with just a few words." Seeing that Emperor Wenshuan did not intend to stop him from speaking, Su Jingfu continued, "In the Battle of Mingshui, General Guangwu was obstinate and self-opinionated. He caused thousands of Dawei soldiers to die at Mingshui. Your Majesty is benevolent and did not pursue the matter. Now that you are here tonight, it is not to ask for forgiveness, but for military power." Xiao Ju said in a low voice, "I am doing this for the people of Dawei." "The people of Dawei?" Su Jingfu shook his head. Second young Master Xiao is only 16 years old and has never been on the battlefield before. There are many generals in Dawei that do not dare to lead the army into battle. You are just a little kid. Don't be too arrogant. Go back." Emperor Wenshuan said, "Do not mention this again." The young man paused and looked at Emperor Wenshuan. "I am willing to make a military pledge. If I am defeated, I am willing to accept any punishment." Every word was powerful and resonant. Xiao family's second young Master Zhao's eyes had always been beautiful. They were as clear as the autumn water, but they always had a hint of laziness. Now the laziness in his eyes had disappeared. It was as if something had sunk down, and something had gradually floated up. It made people feel as if they were burning. It was hard to ignore. "A military pledge is easy," Su Jingfu said. "But second young Master Xiao, if you are defeated, it is just a life. To others, war is not a child's play. Because of General Guangwu's defeat at Mingshui, Great Wei's vitality has been greatly damaged. Now because of your words, you want to use the tens of thousands of Nanfu soldiers as a wager?" He stroked his beard, shaking his head and sighing. Great Wei cannot afford to lose. Xiao Ju was silent for a moment. "I wouldn't dare." Su Jingfu's eyes. "Xiao Ju of the southern barbarians invaded my land. And my father died. I do not want to live. I hope your Majesty allow me to lead the army. Without seeing the news of victory, this subject does not dare to speak rashly. However many soldiers your Majesty is willing to give this subject will take that many. Even if I die on the battlefield, this subject will have no regrets." His attitude was stubborn, and he had the determination to stake everything on one throw. It seemed that as long as Wen Xuandi did not agree, he would kneel here and never get up. Emperor Wenshuan rubbed his temples. "I do not want to talk about this again. Your Majesty is benevolent." The young man's voice did not back down. "Your Majesty," Su Jingfu spoke. "Second young Master Xiao is determined to go to the southern barbarians to fight. He has a pure heart." Emperor Wenshuan looked at him. "What, you want to speak for him?" Su Jingfu hurriedly said. "I do not dare. It is just that. Second young Master Xiao is so confident in himself. Maybe there will be a miracle. It's just that the Great Wei does not dare to gamble with tens of thousands of southern prefecture soldiers. So what?" Emperor Wenshuan asked. 3,000. Xiao Ju raised his head. There were hundreds of thousands of southern barbarians. 3,000 against 100,000. No one would accept this proposal. This was a war they would lose. Emperor Wenshuan took a sip of tea. He understood. Su Jingfu made this request on the surface to make Xiao Ju back down. Bringing 3,000 soldiers to fight the southern barbarians was not forcing him. It was a fool's dream. As long as Xiao Ju did not want to die, he would not agree. He put down the teacup in his hand and looked at the stubborn young man. "Xiao Huaijin, if you insist on going, I will only give you 3,000 soldiers. Are you still willing to go?" Su Jingfu hid his hands in his sleeves and watched from the sidelines. He would not agree. The young man slowly lowered his head and kowtowed to Emperor Wenxuan. "This subject thanks your majesty for your grace." Everyone in the hall was stunned. When Xiaoju raised his eyes again, his expression was calm. "A monarch does not joke. 3,000 it is." The heavy snow pressed down on the bare branches, and with a crack, the branches broke. Lin Shuanghe was in a daze. It had been a long time since he found out that Xiaoju had brought 3,000 soldiers to Mingshui. It had been so long that the Battle of Guo City, and the scholars had cursed Xiaoju behind his back. It had been so long that Xiao Huijin had become Wei's god of war, General Fengyan. It had been so long that the two of them had not seen each other for 2 years. The affairs of the world were unpredictable, and there were many different opinions. However, no one knew how the young man felt when he left the city with 3,000 soldiers, and found out that he was facing an army of 100,000. Xiao Ruby did not know that Xiaoju had drugged him and entered the palace in the middle of the night to ask for 3,000 soldiers. He thought that the emperor had handed the southern barbarians to Xiaoju, and that Xiaoju had temporary military power. Everyone cursed Xiaoju behind his back. They cursed him for fighting for power. They cursed him for entering the palace before the 7th day of his mother's death. They cursed him for deceiving the emperor and handing the southern barbarians to a young man. How ridiculous was that? Who was the one who was being ridiculous? How ridiculous was this world? Xiaoju left the city in the middle of the night. No one knew the look in his eyes before he left, and no one knew what he was thinking. Countless interesting things happened in the capital every day. Some people sighed at the Xiao family's misfortune, while others took pleasure in it. However, it only lasted for a few days. After a month, there were very few people who mentioned it. After a few more months, it had long been forgotten by people, until the news of the Battle of Long Valley came. Second young master Xiao had led the southern barbarians to take down Guo City and drown 60,000 southern barbarians. The whole nation was shocked. They were shocked by the young man's surprise attack and how ruthless he was at such a young age. Everyone thought that he could have used a gentler method to capture the captives. Who knew that there were civilians among the 60,000 who drowned? But what could they do? 3,000 against 100,000. He rubbed a small bump on the bamboo stick and pressed it gently. His hand hurt. He has no other choice. Lin Shuanghe smiled. That's right. No one would use such a method unless they were forced into a dead end. The southern barbarians were stationed in Guo City. Xiao Zhongwu had been attacking for a long time, but he couldn't defeat them. Now that he had 3,000 soldiers, it was even more impossible for him to fight them head-on. Xiaoju ordered the 3,000 soldiers to secretly build a dam 100 miles east of Guo City to block the water from the East Mountain Long Valley. When the water accumulated and turned into a vast ocean, he ordered the dam to be breached. Fei Nu asked, "Young master, you must think carefully. If this goes on, everyone will curse you behind your back. Even if they won by drowning Guo City, it would leave a cruel mark in the history books." All the generals and soldiers had always wanted to be remembered in history and be famous for 1,000 years. Moreover, the emperor advocated benevolence and didn't like to kill indiscriminately. This kind of victory meant that they had to bear more than they could gain. The young man sat under a tree and looked in the direction of Guo City in the distance. He stroked a weed in front of him and said self-mockingly, "Do I have any other choice?" Fei Nu didn't speak. "It doesn't matter what others say about me." He stood up, his black cloak leaving a trail behind him. "Open the dam." Fei Nu didn't speak or move. The young man walked forward and said coldly, "I said, open the dam." Thousands of feet of water flowed down. Guo City was submerged. The water poured in from the east and came out from the west. The barbarian soldiers and civilians in the south couldn't escape. All 60,000 people drowned. The city fell, and Xiaoju won without a fight. When the news reached the imperial court, Emperor Wenxuan was also shocked. After Xiao Zhongwu's death, the officials who supported the Xiao family were suppressed by Prime Minister Su's party. Now that Xiaoju had won, they could hold their heads up high. Xiaoju took the opportunity to submit a letter asking Emperor Wenxuan to hand over the Southern House soldiers to him, so that he could wipe out the southern barbarians in one go. Emperor Wenxuan delegated power bit by bit. Xiaoju's victories were also won one battle after another. In the past few years, the southern barbarians had been defeated by him again and again. In the end, they were utterly defeated. The young man who led 3,000 people out of the city alone at night had finally become the frightening General Feng Yun in the eyes of the world. No one cared about the truth anymore. What people cared about was the fact that he had been greedy for military exploits, treated human lives like grass, and slaughtered at will. What he cared about was that he was arrogant, domineering, and looked down on everyone else. He even chopped down the only son of the Minister of Revenue without any mercy. But was he willing to be like this? When they were young, they went to school together in the Xianchang school and read. The young man has his own arrogance. He despises the Kunlun sect and laughs at Lu Liang. He sharpened his sword for many years and showed his edge today. How spirited and handsome he was. In the years that followed, he was no longer as bright as he was then. The handsome young man in a white robe and a silver crown became the jade-faced killing general in black clothes and black armor. This was not something to be celebrated. From the beginning to the end, he was just one person. The snow fell even harder. It was so heavy that just by standing on the spot, one could already feel the chill. Their feet would leave clear footprints on the snow, but it wouldn't be long before they would be covered by the snow, leaving no traces behind. I don't know. At that time, the governor only led 3,000 people in the Battle of Gua City, He Yan said. Do you know how the Nine Flags Battalion came to be? Lin Shuanghe asked. He Yan shook his head. His Majesty asked the Xiaoju to pick 3,000 people from the South Mansion army. This was his last mercy to Huaijin. Huaijin stood in front of the South Mansion army and asked them to choose whether they were willing to follow him to Mingshui. Before they went, no one thought that they would win the battle. They were going to die. Everyone who stood out had the determination to die and followed the general's son. The first 800 people who stood out later became the Nine Flags Battalion, he said with a smile. No wonder. He Yan understood why the Xiaoju did not easily accept people into the Nine Flags Battalion. No matter how outstanding, brave, smart, and capable they were, they could not compare to the friendship they had built up in the past. Even if they were injured in the Nine Flags Battalion and could not go to the battlefield again, the Xiaoju would help them settle down. Because it was worth it. I didn't know about this at that time. Lin Shuanghe reached out and brushed away a snowflake that had landed on his body. Later, when grandfather was treating the Empress Dowager told him about it. Grandfather then told me that there were many rumors in the imperial court. After piecing them together, we formed the original outline of the situation. Didn't military governor Xiao tell you about this? Yan asked. She remembered that when she entered the Xianchang school, Xiaoju, Lin Shuanghe, and another young man were very close. When Xiaoju was in trouble, he would tell his friend about it. To be honest, I only met him a few times in the past few years. Lin Shuanghe shook his head. The few times he wrote to me, he wanted to borrow money. Borrow money. You didn't expect that, right? When Lin Shuanghe said this, his tone became more relaxed. Xiao family's original silver was confiscated when General Guangwu was killed. When he led the troops to the south 2 years ago, he didn't have enough resources. Xiao family's eldest brother was an honest official. He couldn't bear to squeeze his brother dry, so he came to me. Our Lin family's medicine shops are all over the Dawei. We are loved by many noble ladies in the capital. He treated me as his father, and gave him pocket money. He Yan. Even though he won many battles these years and got a lot of rewards and spoils of war, it's still not enough compared to what I borrowed from him. Lin Shuanghe smiled. Of course, I'm very generous. If he can't pay me back, then forget it. He Yan. It's good to have a friend like you. These words were said with sincerity. Lin Shuanghe waved his hand modestly. You're too kind. That's why I was surprised when Xiaoju sent me a letter asking me to come to Liangzhou. Did the governor ask Dr. Lin to come to Liangzhou? He Yan asked curiously. That's right. The letter said that one of his confidants had an eye injury, and asked me to come and treat it. I thought it was Fei Nu Qiwu who was injured. Halfway there was a letter saying that the person's eye had recovered. Since I couldn't turn back halfway, I heard that he was in Qingnan. So I changed my route, and went there to meet him. I also followed him to the Liangzhou guard to see where he lives now. He Yan was surprised. Xiao Ju's letter said, confident with an eye injury. It must be her. She had been injured by the assassin at Sun Xiangfu's banquet. However, she quickly realized that it wasn't serious. At that time, she didn't know that Xiao Ju had already asked Lin Shuanghe to come and treat her. Although Lin Shuanghe only looked at women, he was Lin Qingtan's grandson. His medical skills were superb and no one dared to look down on him. This person wasn't as heartless as he made himself out to be. As the two of them talked, they had already arrived at He Yan's door. Here. Lin Shuanghe handed He Yan a robe. You can give this to him. He Yan. Why me? Lin Shuanghe thought for a moment. Because Xiao Huijin must be in a bad mood right now. If I go and join in the fun, I'll be scolded. But you're different. He leaned closer to He Yan and whispered. If a cute and obedient girl goes, he'll control his temper and won't make things difficult for you. He Yan's lips twitched. Dr. Lin, do you think military Governor Xiao is the kind of person who'll have tender feelings for the fairer sex? Moreover, in Xiao Ju's mind, she wasn't cute and obedient at all. Of course, why wouldn't he be? Lin Shuanghe looked at her with a smile and gently pushed her into the room. He didn't chase you out of the Liangzhou guards immediately after discovering your identity. This proves that he treats you well. Go, be careful. Don't fall. He Yan, wait. I'll come see you tomorrow. He Yan was pushed into his room. The door was closed behind him, and the room was empty. The food that Cheng Lisu and Song Taotao had brought over was still by the bed. He Yan walked over with the support of a stick, and sat down on the bed. The black robe was next to his hand. He Yan looked at the other side of the door. He wondered if Xiao Ju was there right now. If she was, wouldn't it be a bit awkward for her to just give him the food? The window was open, and the salt-like snow drifted into the room with the wind. The young governor stood in front of the window and looked at the wind and snow outside. In the dungeon, Lei Ho's words rang in his ears. The snow grew heavier and heavier, almost blinding his eyes. The light in his eyes gradually dimmed. When he was young, he had learned martial arts from a master in the mountains. Before he left the mountains, the master had said to him, "You will walk on a very difficult path. You must walk on alone and never look back." He was young then and didn't understand what this meant. It wasn't until the huge waves of fate came crashing down and overturned the boat that carried the youth's hopes. As he floated alone in the sea, he suddenly understood. So that's how it was. Xiao Zhongwu only had 2 sons. Xiao Jing was like a flawless white jade, pure and noble. How could he participate in this kind of thing? If one of them had to walk on this path and bear the burden of murder, misunderstanding, infamy, and loneliness, why not let him do it? He didn't care. So many years had passed. He didn't care about misunderstandings, nor was he afraid of being questioned. How could he lose something he had never owned? But this kind of snowy day was too cold. Creak. A sound came from behind him. Xiao Ju turned around and a head popped out from behind the door. He Yan struggled to walk in with a stick, holding his pajamas in his hands. Sorry, the youth said sincerely. I just knocked on the door but you didn't respond so I, Xiao Ju. So you picked the lock and came in uninvited? He Yan said embarrassedly. Don't be angry, we're all neighbors. She sneezed. Achoo, why didn't you close the window, it's so cold. How could she say something like, we're all neighbors so calmly? Xiao Ju didn't bother to pay attention to her, and closed the window. Ian also felt wronged. She knocked on the door for a long time, but Xiao Ju ignored her. She thought that Xiao Ju wasn't home. She thought that it was good that she didn't bump into Xiao Ju when he was in a bad mood. She might as well use this opportunity to secretly pick the lock, sneak in, put down the pajamas and leave. She didn't have to think about how to comfort him when they met. But this person was in the house, and he still ignored her. It was too disrespectful. Commander-in-Chief, your pajamas. Ian handed the pajamas to him. Xiao Ju looked at her. Just put it on the couch. Ian said, oh, and put it on the couch. She then sat down on a stool in the house. She saw that this person was still standing in the same place, thinking about something. She guessed that he was still upset about what Lei Ho said in the dungeon. She couldn't help but sympathize with him. During her years in the Fuyue army, she didn't know that Xiao Ju had such a difficult life. If it was her, then so be it. He Yan never felt that she was special, But if this kind of thing happened to Xiaoju, then she felt that the heavens were too cruel. It turned out that God wasn't Xiaoju's biological father. He had to take away what he had given her. He was even an unscrupulous businessman who never made a loss. She tried to find something to talk about. Commander-in-Chief, I see that your pajamas are really beautiful. Where did you buy it? How much did it cost? Xiaoju said. The palace gave it to me. Yan. This person obviously didn't want to talk to her anymore. That was why he deliberately made it difficult for her to continue the conversation. Yan hesitated whether to leave or not. She thought about the medicine that Xiaoju gave her when she was injured inside in her heart. She was a person who would take revenge for revenge and repay kindness for kindness. Now that Xiaoju was in a bad mood, it would be disloyal to her if she left just like that. Commander-in-Chief, the wound on my waist hurts. Yan changed the topic, trying to attract his attention to something else. Will it leave any side effects in the future? Hurts? Xiaoju sat down in front of the table and said indifferently, I see that you can get out of bed and walk around. It shouldn't be a big problem. Yan, she said, Commander-in-Chief, you can't vent your dissatisfaction with Lei Ho on me. This person was like a firecracker now. She couldn't even talk properly. Xiaoju flipped through the pages in front of him and said without turning his head, You think too much. Yan looked at him. It was probably the report sent by the Liangzhou guards about the attack on Reborn and the number of casualties. He sat in front of the table and carefully flipped through it. Xiaoju didn't have it easy. Yan thought to himself. He first went to Qingnan and rushed back with the Nanfu army. He led the army to destroy Reborn's soldiers, and then helped the injured soldiers settle down. Then he went to interrogate Lei Ho. After that, he was scolded by Lei Ho. Now he came back to continue reading the military report. He didn't stop for a moment. Yan was injured, but at least he had a good night's sleep. This person, on the other hand, didn't rest from beginning to end. But when he was in the Xianchang Hall, he liked to laze around. So even Xiaoju couldn't avoid it? His back was always as straight as a tree, as if he would never get tired. But in fact he would get tired. Yan sat in the chair and looked at his back. He said, Commander-in-Chief, don't take Lei Ho's words to heart. Yan didn't hear Xiaoju's reply, but he didn't care. He continued, He's the enemy. Of course he's happy to see you angry. Those words were purposely said to anger you. You're not the only one who was scolded. He also scolded me. He called me a sissy. Yan started to talk nonsense again. He also said that I have a hidden disease, and that my fiancé will run away with someone sooner or later. I'm all alone and will end up in the east of the city with no one to buy tofu. This kind of consolation was really lame. After Yan finished speaking, he felt that he didn't put in the effort. But what could she do? She was rarely comforted by others, so she didn't know how to comfort others. There was no right or wrong in some things. You had to make the right decision based on your position. Outsiders couldn't understand the feeling of shouldering everything alone. It wasn't a good feeling. She had experienced it before, so she could understand Xiaoju's feelings. Xiaoju still couldn't be bothered with him. Her eyes didn't move away from the military report in front of her. Yan stood up, leaned on the staff, and walked to his side with difficulty. Her right hand clenched into a fist and landed on his desk. I'll give you something, she said. I'm leaving. She slowly dragged her feet back to her room and closed the door. After Yan left, Xiaoju stopped what she was doing and looked at the table. There was a sesame candy lying on the spot where her palm was just now. It looked very sweet. Chapter 118. After the incident with Reborn, the Liangzhou guards were very busy for a period of time. After the new soldiers who died in battle were buried, their names were recorded in the military registry. When they returned to the capital in the future, they had to pay compensation to the families of the new soldiers. The new soldiers who died were all sentinels, and most of them were still very young. They had died in battle less than a year after coming to the Liangzhou guards. Their companions who spent all their time together were also very depressed for a period of time. However, even though they were depressed, their days still had to go on. Especially after this incident, the Liangzhou guards were not as safe as before. Xiao Ju ordered Chief Instructor Shen to begin training the new formations. If they really encountered an enemy, the new soldiers had to learn how to set up formations to be able to kill the enemy. Not all of the Nanfu soldiers had arrived in Liangzhou. When Xiao Ju rushed back from Qingnan, she brought 10,000 Nanfu soldiers with her. The Nine Flags Battalion remained in Qingnan and did not follow. Now that Liangzhou city had become the target of public criticism, it was not a good time to be in the limelight. The Nanfu soldiers' daily training was different from the Liangzhou Guards' daily training. Just as Xiao Ju said, the length and amount of daily training was 3 times that of the Liangzhou Guards. Every time the new soldiers of the Liangzhou Guards saw the Nanfu soldiers' daily training, they couldn't help but sigh in admiration. In an instant, the originally empty training grounds became lively. At the foot of White Moon Mountain, by the Wulu River, there were soldiers everywhere. He Yan's injuries were also getting better day by day. Lin Shuangha's medical skills were much more exquisite than Shen Mushue's. He originally thought that such an injury would take him a year or so to recover. Now at this rate, He Yan felt that he could still go to the training grounds and jump around in 2 months. Song Taotao placed the soup in front of He Yan. After watching He Yan drink it all, she took the bowl and left. The little girl didn't know how to cook, so she went to the head of the soldiers and used her status as a young miss to rob them. The food she robbed was to feed He Yan. He Yan sometimes felt like he was living off a woman. At first he was a bit embarrassed, but after a while, he became used to it. After all, the soup was delicious. It would be even better if the little girl didn't look at her, as if she was looking at her own treasure. From the other side of the room, a faint voice could be heard. It seemed to be Liang Ping's, and he sounded a little excited. He Yan thought about it for a while, then got up and got out of bed with the help of a stick. She took out a silver thread from her sleeve and inserted it into the lock. She had done this kind of thing many times, so it was a walk in the park for her. Fortunately, Xiao Ju turned a blind eye to her behavior and did not change the lock to a more complicated sure character. Xiao Ju's important documents were probably not in this room, which was why it was so loose. He Yan pushed open the door slightly and saw a person kneeling in front of Xiao Ju. It was Du Mao, whom he had not seen for a long time. Ever since the incident with Rita Musi, Lei Ho's identity as a spy was exposed. As Lei Ho's relative, the original sponsor, Du Mao, had disappeared without a trace. He Yan heard Cheng Lisu say that Du Mao seemed to have been locked up. He Yan could understand. Since Lei Ho was a spy, no one could guarantee that Du Mao was innocent. Now that Du Mao appeared here, it was probably because the injustice had been cleared. In addition to the kneeling Du Mao, there was also a group of instructors standing in the room. He Yan saw Liang Ping step forward and plead. Commander-in-Chief, Instructor Du and Lei Ho haven't seen each other for many years. He really didn't know that Lei Ho was a spy. Please, Commander-in-Chief, give him a way out. That's right, Commander-in-Chief. Madame, I couldn't help but say. Instructor Du has been in the Liangzhou Guards for 10 years and has never made a single mistake. If Lei Ho didn't intentionally hide it, he wouldn't have ended up like this. Please, Commander-in-Chief, take into account Instructor Du's hard work for so many years and give him a lighter punishment. The other instructors all agreed and pleaded for Du Mao. Du Mao had been in the Liangzhou Guards since he was in his 20s. He had stayed in the bitter cold for 10 years. There wasn't much to play around in the guard station. At most, the instructors would gather together to drink wine during festivals. What they did on a daily basis was either training soldiers or guarding the station. The instructors had deep friendships and naturally didn't want to see Du Mao lose his life because of Lei Ho. They couldn't bear it and came to plead for leniency. Shen Han's lips moved, but he didn't say anything in the end. It wasn't that he didn't have a deep relationship with Du Mao, but even though they had only known each other for less than a year, Shen Han knew that the second young master Xiao in front of him wasn't someone who would change his mind because of someone else's words. As expected, Xiao Ju didn't pay attention to what the others were saying. He looked at Du Mao and said, "What do you plan to do?" He Yan still remembered that when he had first arrived at the Liangzhou Guards, this instructor Du Mao had a good relationship with Liang Ping and often argued with Liang Ping. Among the instructors, he was considered young. Now in just a few short days he seemed to have aged 10 years. A few strands of white hair had sprouted from his temples, and his expression had aged considerably. Du Mao opened his mouth, unable to hide the exhaustion in his voice. Du Mao is willing to accept punishment. Du Mao. Liang Ping anxiously called out his name. I didn't find out Lei Ho's current status before rashly recommending him to the guard station. This is dereliction of duty, Du Mao said. It is only right for the governor to punish me. You are indeed dereliction of duty, Xiao Ju said calmly. Because of you many new recruits have died in the Liangzhou guards. The instructors who wanted to continue persuading him stopped in their tracks, and didn't dare open their mouths. The dead cannot be revived, Xiao Ju said. Do you understand? Du Mao understands. The room was silent. Liang Ping looked at Du Mao with a look of despair. I won't take your life. As soon as he said this, everyone in the room was stunned. He Yan was also stunned. Xiao Ju said, You can leave. Governor. From today onwards, you are no longer an instructor of the Liangzhou guards. Xiao Ju stood up and walked out of the room. You don't have to come back in the future. His figure disappeared outside the room. After a moment of silence, Ma Damei finally came to her senses and pulled Du Mao, who was still kneeling on the ground. Okay. The governor has shown you mercy. Hurry up and get up. Du Mao stood in a daze and suddenly began to wail. Everyone in the room comforted him, and Du Mao's cries. The noise made He Yan's head hurt. She grabbed her clothes and casually put them on. Leaning on a stick, she followed him out of the room. As soon as she stepped out, she shivered from the cold wind and snow outside. Where's Xiao Ju? He Yan looked around. This person had just left the room. How could she be gone now? Could she fly? Looking for me? Someone's voice came from behind. He Yan was so scared that she gasped and almost dropped the stick in her hand. She turned around and saw Xiao Ju standing behind her. She raised her eyebrows and stared at her. What's the matter? No, nothing. He Yan pretended to look at the sky. The weather is very good. I came out for a walk. Xiao Ju glanced at the sand-like snow outside and said mockingly, I thought you didn't eavesdrop enough and wanted to ask me something in person. He actually knew that she was eavesdropping? That was awkward. He Yan scratched her head. The governor's hearing is very good. Xiao Ju smiled. Not as good as yours. Tell me, he asked. Why are you looking for me? Why was she looking for him? He Yan didn't know either. She just followed him out subconsciously. She was speechless for a moment. After thinking for a while she said, Governor, you still showed mercy to Instructor Du. It was one thing for the instructors to have a close personal relationship with Du Mao, but it was another thing for Du Mao to make a mistake. He Yan thought that with Xiao Ju's personality, Du Mao wouldn't be able to escape death. She didn't expect that in the end, he would only be expelled from the Liangzhou guards. Xiao Ju laughed. She seemed to think that her words were funny. Showed mercy. Yes, if it were me. What would you do if it were you? He Yan suddenly couldn't say anything. What would she do if it were her? It wasn't that she had never encountered such a situation when she was a junior soldier, a deputy general, and then a general. In fact, General Fei Hong wasn't any more merciful than Xiao Ju. However, most of the time, others subconsciously ignored it. It was only because she usually fought with her subordinates that she didn't have any merciless great achievements, like Xiao Ju. If it were her, would she give the order to take Du Mao's life? If it were me, I wouldn't either, He Yan said. Taking Du Mao's life seems like a strict military order, but in reality, it hurts people's hearts. The Liangzhou guards just went through the Raidamuzi incident. If people's hearts are scattered, the Liangzhou guards will be like a plate of loose sand. It will be difficult for them to stand up. Xiao Ju looked at her with a bit of surprise. That's right. He Yan said proudly. I already said that I'm the #1 Liangzhou guards. I'm very smart. How about it, Commander-in-Chief? Can you let me enter the 9 Flags Battalion? Xiao Ju curled the corner of her mouth. No. This person was really stubborn. He Yan was about to argue for herself when she saw him turn around and continue walking forward. He Yan followed him with a stick and asked, Where are you going, Commander-in-Chief? The training field. Are you going to watch the soldiers train? He Yan said. I'm going too. After she was injured, she naturally couldn't train with them. Every day, other than lying on the bed, She would walk 2 laps outside the house with a stick. It was really boring. Even though Song Taotao and Chung Lisu took the opportunity to come over and talk to her, between the two of them, one only remembered trivial things like which girl in the capital was beautiful, and which madam liked Lin, while the other didn't know anything other than eating, drinking, and playing. Ian had a hard time talking to them. The only one who could talk to her was Lin Shuanghe. He was even invited by Shen Muxia to the medical hall to help brew medicine for the injured soldiers. Therefore, when Xiaoju said that they were going to the training field, Ian was a bit restless. The snow had lessened, and it wasn't as cold outside as before. Ian couldn't walk fast with the stick and complained, "Commander-in-Chief, wait for me." Xiaoju couldn't help but stop in his tracks when he heard her confident tone. He asked, "Am I your servant?" "No." Ian came back to his senses and explained, "What I mean is we can walk slower and talk about other things." Cough. Did Lei Ho say why Muzi came to find trouble with us? Wasn't the Western Chang rebellion quelled by General Fei Hong a long time ago? Where did the Chang tribe get so many soldiers? Tens of thousands of soldiers. Did the Chang tribe have so many soldiers now? Ian had fought with Muji before, and was very familiar with the Chang tribe situation. He felt that something was wrong. "It's not the Chang tribe." Xiaoju rarely answered Ian's question. "It's Yudo." Yudo. This time, Ian really didn't expect it. Xiaoju glanced at her and saw her surprised expression. She said lightly, "What do you think?" Was she testing her? Ian asked, "Is Muzi a Yudo?" Xiaoju was speechless for a moment before saying, "He's not a Yudo, but other than Muzi and a few of your trusted subordinates, the rest of the soldiers are Yudo." "Commander-in-Chief, are you sure?" Xiaoju walked forward unhurriedly. "I'm sure. If it's really a Yudo," Ian's voice was serious, "then what the Yudo wants is not just a Liangzhou guard." "What do you mean?" "In recent years, the Yudo kingdom has raised soldiers and is very powerful. They always harass the people at the border with the intention of testing us. Now that they've come to the Liangzhou guard, they use the Chang tribe as an excuse to hide themselves in the dark. They want to use the Chang tribe's name to run amok in Dawei. Commander-in-Chief, think about it. If you really went to Zhangtai and couldn't save them in time, when those Yudo took over the Liangzhou guard and took over the city, Liangzhou city would be taken over by the Yudo. It would be like tearing a hole in Dawei's border. They could go all the way west and follow the river until they reached the capital." Xiaoju looked up. "That's all? I'm afraid there's a traitor in Dawei." Ian said, "This person has Yudo connections and is an old acquaintance of the commander-in-chief." Xiaoju said, "Continue." "To be able to secretly plant a trusted aide in the Liangzhou guard and spread fake news in Zhangtai. This person's status is not low and he has a wide network. He knows that the commander-in-chief is impregnable in the Liangzhou guard, so he first lured you away. This person must be very afraid of you. Therefore," Ian looked at Xiaoju. "Perhaps there is such a person who has a very high position in the imperial court, and has fought with the governor in the past, but did not gain any advantage. If there is such a person, there is an 80 to 90% chance that he did it." Xiaoju stared at him and said, "Then why don't you tell me who this person is?" Ian felt that it was really strange. Although he and Xiaoju were classmates, it was only for a year. After that, they hadn't seen each other for many years. One was in the south, and the other was in the north. Because of Xiao Zhongwu's matter, Xiaoju was deeply embroiled in the whirlpool of the imperial court. However, she was a pure and innocent person who relied on military merits to forcefully rise in rank. Every day, she stayed in the border camp, so she didn't know much about the messy affairs of the imperial court. How could she guess who that person was? Even if it was an examination, it was too difficult. Not everyone was like him, who could sleep and become the number 1 in the Xianchang dojo. Thinking about Yuan Baozhen, Ian said casually, "Su Jingfu." Xiaoju was stunned. Ian saw his expression, and his heart jumped. "It's really him?" Xiaoju didn't answer. Su Jingfu actually colluded with the enemy and committed treason? Ian was shocked. He's crazy. He's the prime minister of the court. What good would it do him to do such a thing? "You can speak louder," Xiaoju said indifferently. "If there is no evidence, I can sue you anytime for slandering an official of the court. He Yan thought, who isn't an official of the court? In her previous life, when she was a General Feihong, she was also paid by the government. But, she wanted to say something, but Xiao Ju had already stopped and walked forward. Not far away, the sound of soldiers shouting and getting into formation could be heard. Unknowingly, the two of them had already walked to the practice field. The practice field used to only be used by the Liang Province Guard recruits for daily training. Now it was split into two sides. The east side was used by the Nanfu soldiers, while the west side was used by the Liang Province Guard. Now that both sides were training at the same time, the difference was obvious. The deputy commander of the Nanfu soldiers was practicing his footwork. He didn't need anyone to direct him. Just looking at him made people feel that he was brave and invincible. On the other hand, the Liang Province Guard recruits had just started learning how to get into formation. It was inevitable that they were a bit flustered. Shen Han stood on the high platform and shouted with all his might. He Yan looked and hesitated. They're practicing the fish scale formation? Xiao Ju glanced at her and asked, You know? It's here to test people again. He Yan didn't understand Xiao Ju's questions from time to time, but she thought that maybe he was trying to test whether she could enter the Nine Flags battalion. She could only answer seriously. They're distributed in echelons. The front part is slightly raised, and the main force is gathered in the center. Then, they're divided into small square formations shaped like fish scales. When facing the enemy, they can concentrate their forces to attack the center of the enemy formation. However, their weakness is at the rear. If the enemy breaks through from the rear, they can break this formation. It's a fish scale formation, but, she said, they're too loose. Too loose. If they were to slowly get into formation, they would have been killed 5 times over. Xiao Ju looked at her thoughtfully. Suddenly, she curled her lips and said, Not bad. Yin was very proud. Her hard work paid off. Who would have thought that she, who was the last in the Xianchang dojo in the past, was now so familiar with the art of war that she could easily answer the questions of the first in the Xianchang dojo. Her hair hadn't turned white in the war, and she hadn't wasted her time studying. You've learned the art of war? Xiao Ju raised her eyebrows. I know a little. You know how to set up formations? You flatter me. Good. Xiao Ju looked at the soldiers training below the stage and said, If De Muzi came to the Liangzhou Guard that day and you weren't locked in the dungeon, and Shen Han gave you command of the army, how would you fight this battle? She was going to give him a question so soon? Ian thought for a moment and said slowly, Those Yudo soldiers are strong and vicious. The new recruits of the Liangzhou Guard haven't been to the battlefield yet, so their morale is low. It's hard to fight them head-on, and it's not something that can be solved in a short time. If it was me, I would use the carriage formation. Xiao Ju looked at her calmly. Go on. As the main general, I would be in the center of the formation. The soldiers outside would be arranged layer by layer. The soldiers would be scattered outside, forming a roving formation. When the battle starts, they would rotate in the same direction and take turns attacking the enemy's formation, just like a spinning wheel. In this way, if we don't constantly exert pressure on the enemy, the Yudo will collapse from exhaustion. Our side will be replenished and rested by taking turns to attack, and we'll recover our fighting strength. You're the main general. Xiao Ju mocked. What I mean is, I'll temporarily be the main general. The one who really needs to fight is still you, Commander. The reason why I chose the carriage formation is to stall for time so that you can rush back to support us, He Yan said sincerely. Xiao Ju turned around and bent down slightly. She looked down at her and smiled. Lady, he's learned the art of war well. It's a pity that he's not a general. No matter what, Xiao Ju had a pretty good eye. Ian nodded and said, I think so too. I feel that I was born to be a general. Sometimes, I even feel that I was a female general in my previous life. Xiao Ju. Commander, you don't believe me? Ian poked a hole in the snow with a stick. Or do you think that women can't be generals? I don't think so. Ian raised her head and looked at him. Everyone thought that women should stay in the boudoir, embroider, draw eyebrows, and wait for their husbands to favor them. Not to mention being a female general. Even if they were to appear in public as a female shopkeeper, a female teacher, or a female doctor, they would receive strange looks from many people. There were very few who could take that step. Even if they did, others would not understand. You can do whatever you want. The young man's eyes were lazy and the corners of his mouth twitched. As long as you can do it, it's fine. Yen was stunned for a moment and stared at him without saying anything. His gaze fell on the training field in the distance and the recruits who were training. He did not see Yen's gaze behind him. Thank you, Yen said softly in her heart. The snow gradually stopped. The recruits led by Shenhan practiced a few times and were not as flustered as they were at the beginning. Seeing the initial results, Xiaoju and Yen also stood here for a long time. A familiar voice sounded behind them. Huijin. Brother. Yen turned around and saw Lin Shuanghe. Lin Shuanghe climbed up to the attic and brushed the snow off his boots. No wonder I couldn't find you two anywhere. So you came here. He looked at Xiaoju and smiled mischievously. You brought our sister He here to watch the training? Yen. Dr. Lin, please don't call me sister outside. I'm sorry. Lin Shuanghe covered his mouth with his fan and apologized. I forgot. But there are no outsiders here. He glanced at the stick Yen was holding and asked, Can you get out of bed and walk so far today? How is it? Does your wound still hurt? It doesn't hurt too much, Yen said. Dr. Lin's medical skills are superb. I feel much better today. That's great. Lin Shuanghe waved his fan. If I can't cure you, I will feel very guilty. The two of them complimented each other. Xiaoju looked on coldly from the side. She couldn't stand it anymore and said impatiently, If you have something to say, say it. Lin Shuanghe was stunned. I almost forgot about the important matter. Someone from the Liangzhou guards just came. I wanted to find Xinjiao, but Xinjiao wasn't here. It took me a long time to find you here. Who is it? Someone from the palace said that His Majesty will reward you for the great victory of the Liangzhou guards. Oh right, there's also that. He couldn't remember who it was. It took him a while to remember the name. The fourth son of Count Shijin's residence, Chu Xilin. That's right, Chu Xilin is here too. Chu Zhao. Xiaoju frowned. What's he doing here? Lin Shuanghe shrugged. How would I know? They're all waiting at the entrance of the guards. Aren't you going to take a look? Xiaoju paused, then walked down the stairs. Let's go. Commander-in-Chief, what about me? Yen hurriedly leaned on his stick. He wanted to follow, but he didn't know if he could. Xiaoju didn't look like an old friend catching up. Xiaoju looked at him and said, You can go back. There's no need to follow. Oh. Yen obediently agreed. Lin Shuanghe waved his hand at him. The two of them quickly went down the stairs, their figures disappearing into the distance. Yen looked at the vast expanse of snow. He was a bit confused. Who exactly was this person called Chu Xilin? Chapter 119. There was a group of people standing outside the garrison. The servants beside the carriages were unloading boxes from the carriages, and were extremely busy. The guests were sitting and drinking tea in the resting area outside the garrison. As soon as Xiaoju entered, she saw Liang Ping pouring tea for the guests. Fourth young master Chu. The first to greet him was Lin Shuanghe. He waved his fan and walked forward as if he were a host greeting a guest. Is the tea to your liking? Chu Xilin stood up and cupped his hands in greeting to Lin Shuanghe and Xiaoju. Military Governor Xiao, young Master Lin. He smiled and said, The Liang Province Garrison's Yunwu tea is mellow and elegant, leaving a lingering fragrance on the teeth and cheeks. Governor, you are so lucky. Xiaoju pulled over a chair and sat down. She stared at him and said, It's just some coarse tea, no need to be so polite. Chu Xilin was not angry. He only smiled and said, Governor, you are joking. The fourth young master of Shijinbo's household was about the same age as Xiaoju. Compared to Xiaoju's usual indifferent and lazy expression, he appeared much gentler. He was also very good-looking. His facial features were delicate, his skin was fair, and he wore a loose jade-colored robe. He appeared even thinner than before. His eyes were long and narrow, and he always had a smile on his face. He was truly an elegant gentleman, as gentle as jade. The two of them stood together. One was as cold as autumn water, the other as bright and clear as an orchid. It was a very pleasing sight to behold. Beside Chu Zhao stood a girl who looked like a maidservant. Although she was wearing the clothes of a maidservant, she was exceptionally beautiful. Her facial features were deep and bright. Even though she was wearing plain clothes, it was difficult to conceal her beauty. Lin Shuanghe was used to seeing beautiful women, but when he saw this girl's appearance, he couldn't help but be dazzled. He sighed inwardly. When master and servant stood together, they did not look like people of the mortal world. Of Shi Jinbo's 4 sons, the first 3 had average looks. Only this one looked so beautiful. It seemed that a mother's appearance was very important. 4th young master Chu, why have you come to the Liang State Guard? Xiao Ju asked. Chu Zhao laughed and said, His Majesty heard that military governor Xiao has annihilated tens of thousands of enemy troops in the Liangzhou Guard, and eradicated the remaining evildoers of the Chang tribe. His Majesty's dragon countenance was greatly pleased and specially sent me to deliver the reward, while at the same time, he wanted to see the morale of the Liangzhou Guard. Reward. Xiao Ju looked at him playfully and said carelessly, Liangzhou is a cold and bitter place. For 4th young master Chu to lower himself to come and watch, he smiled. It's not simple. Chu Zhao said. It is Xylan's fortune to be able to see the mighty army led by military governor Xiao with her own eyes. Xiao Ju laughed but didn't say anything. His Majesty also ordered me to hold a banquet to celebrate our victory in Liang Province. Chu Zhao said. However, I am not clear on how the Liang Province Guard normally celebrates. Therefore, I can only trouble the commander-in-chief. The new recruits who died in battle have just been buried, Xiao Ju said. I'm afraid it's not very appropriate to celebrate now. Chu Zhao's smile was gentle, but his tone was firm. How can there not be blood in war? Besides, annihilating the enemy is a joyous occasion. Rewards should be rewarded. This is also His Majesty's intention. Was he using the Emperor Wenshuan's name? Xiao Ju stared at him for a while. After a while he nodded and smiled. All right. He stood up and said meaningfully, We can hold a celebration banquet tomorrow. 4th young master Chu, please come and join us. Chu Zhao stood up and returned the salute. Deference is no substitute for obedience. Xiao Ju left the room and ordered Fei Nu. Arrange a room for 4th young master Chu's people. Fei Nu accepted the order and left. Lin Shuanghe followed him out and moved closer to him. He asked in a low voice, What did Chu Zhao come here for? From the looks of it, is he going to stay in the Liang Province Guard for a while? Su Jingfu is anxious now that he's gone, Xiao Ju said calmly. He sent his dog over to take a look. Is there a problem? Lin Shuanghe looked back at the room and saw Chu Zhao drinking tea with his head lowered. He asked, Isn't it a bit unsafe for him to stay here? After all, this guy is Su Jingfu's man. Unsafe. Xiao Ju said. That depends on his ability. Let's go. Where are we going? Since it's a reward, we should see what's inside. Xiao Ju said playfully. He came to the Liang Province Guard with such great fanfare. It's just a few boxes of rewards. Isn't that a bit unreasonable? You want to take advantage of this opportunity again? Xiao Ju glanced at him. Lin Shuanghe said, I don't mean anything else. I'm just asking. Don't be angry. Let's go see the treasures. He Yen returned from the martial arts practice field and returned to his idle state. He lay on the bed and read a few travel books while waiting for Song Taotao to bring him food. After eating, Song Taotao was about to leave when he heard some movement outside the door. It seemed that Song Taotao was talking to someone. He thought that Xiao Ju had returned, so he got off the bed and opened the door. He saw Lin Shuanghe immediately. Dr. Lin? He Yen looked around but didn't see Xiao Ju. He asked, Is the commander-in-chief not here? He went to discuss the celebration banquet with the instructor. Lin Shuanghe smiled. I'll wait for him in the room. I have something to tell him. Celebration banquet. He Yen was confused. What celebration banquet? The Liang Province Guard celebration banquet. Lin Shuanghe waved at Song Taotao. After Song Taotao left, he walked towards He Yen. However, when he reached the door, he suddenly stopped and didn't want to go any further. He Yen was confused. What's wrong? Lin Shuanghe retracted his hand and said seriously, It's not good for a man and a woman to be in the same room. If word gets out, it will damage your reputation. Yan was speechless. She said, "No one knows my identity here. Dr. Lin, you can just treat me as a normal recruit. Also, didn't you come here before?" Lin Shuanghe waved his hand reservedly. "There were other people in the room before. Now it's just the two of us. I'm afraid that it will cause a misunderstanding." "What misunderstanding?" Yan was helpless. "I often stay in the same room as the commander-in-chief. There's nothing wrong with it." Lin Shuanghe took a step back. "That's even more unacceptable. I can't play with my friend's wife. Do you think I'm a despicable person who would betray my friend?" Yan was speechless. What kind of nonsense was this person spouting? She thought for a moment and finally came up with a good idea. "How about this, young Master Lin? You go to the commander-in-chief's room and I'll stay in my room. I'll open the middle door and we'll talk through it. This way we won't be in the same room, but in two separate rooms. How does this work?" Lin Shuanghe didn't expect Yan to be able to do this. After a moment of surprise, he slapped his fan. "Let's do it this way." Yan returned to his room and used Chung Lisu's silver thread to pry open the lock. He struggled to push a stool to the other side of the middle door. Lin Shuanghe was already waiting there. He looked at the middle door and asked Yan, "Do you usually play like this?" "How?" "Well." Lin Shuanghe seemed to feel embarrassed when he said this. He shook his head and smiled. "I didn't expect Huijin to be like this as well." Yan was confused by his words, but he still remembered what he said about the celebratory feast. He asked, "Dr. Lin, what's the celebratory feast you mentioned earlier? Didn't you defeat Ritamusi's people and wipe out tens of thousands of enemy troops?" Lin Shuanghe said. When His Majesty heard about this, he was very happy. He specially sent people to bring rewards to commend you. He also wants to hold a celebratory feast at the Liang Prefecture Guard to reward the 3 armies. Yan was stunned when he heard this. Now? It's not very good to celebrate now. It wasn't a good time to celebrate in the Liang Prefecture Guard. Although they won this battle, they came in a hurry. At the beginning, they didn't know what was going on, so dozens of sentries died. Even though they won in the end, it was mostly because of the support of the South Mansion soldiers. Compared to the joy of winning the battle, the feelings of these new soldiers right now were probably more of sadness and fear of the death of their comrades. How could it be good to celebrate at this time? What can we do about His Majesty's intentions? Lin Shuanghe sighed. How can we not appreciate his kindness? For a moment, neither of them spoke. After a while, Yan asked, "The person who came to deliver His Majesty's decree is the one you were talking about today, Chu Xilin, right?" Yan asked, "Who is Chu Xilin?" "You've never heard of Chu Xilin?" This time, Lin Shuanghe was surprised. Yan shook his head. "Xiao Ruby is the #1 dream man in the capital, Xiao Huijin is #2, and Chu Xilin is #3. Lin Shuanghe sighed. However, ever since Xiao Ruby got married, there's only Xiao Huijin and Chu Xilin. Our Huijin has a cold personality and doesn't like to talk to girls. In the past few years, he's not as good as Chu Xilin. Although Chu Xilin's background is a bit low, he's good-looking and gentle. He's not even engaged yet. If you ask the girls in the capital who they want to marry, they'll probably say Chu Xilin." "What?" He looked at Yan. "You've never heard of him when you were in the capital? That's impossible." Of course, Yan didn't know. Previously, she had been leading troops into battle. How could she have the time to pay attention to the affairs of the heart or the handsome men in the capital? Later, she returned to the capital and quickly got married. She had no way of knowing about other men. Chu Xilin really hadn't heard of him. "I've been raised in the boudoir by my father since I was young. I never left the house and rarely even spoke to other men," Yan said seriously. "I really don't know anything about the outside world." "Is that so?" Lin Shuanghe said. "Then your father is really strict with you." Yan nodded. "That's true." She asked, "What's the relationship between Chu Xilin and military governor Xiao?" Xiao Ju wasn't close to people. She hadn't seen him like anyone, but she hadn't seen him hate anyone either. Su Jingfu was one of them. She hadn't seen Chu Xilin today, but just hearing his name made Xiao Ju unhappy. Could it be that they had a grudge in the past? That's a long story. Lin Shuanghe stood up and poured himself a cup of tea. He drank the tea to moisten his throat before sitting down again. He said to He Yan, "You haven't heard of Chu Xilan, but have you heard of his father, Shi Jinbo Chu Linfeng?" He Yan felt that the name sounded familiar. She thought for a moment and said, "Is he the one who married 19 concubines, each of them outstanding beauties?" Yes. He Yan remembered the name Chu Linfeng. When she was in the army, the deputy generals and subordinates would gather together to chat. They didn't envy the emperor, but they envied Shi Jinbo the most. Shi Jinbo was born handsome, and was famous for being a handsome man in Dawei. His wife was a few years older than him. She was ugly and had a fierce temperament. A wastrel like Chu Linfeng wouldn't give up so easily. Before they were married, he spent every day in the flower shop. After they were married, he became even more serious. The wife he married was virtuous. She seemed to know that she was ordinary and wasn't favored by her husband, so she never stopped him from taking in concubines. Over the years he took in 19 concubines. Each of them was beautiful, charming, and had their own interests. But taking in concubines was one thing. Over the years, other than the 3 young masters who crawled out of his wife's womb, no concubine was able to give birth to Shi Jinbo's children. It was said that these concubines were all fed sterile drugs before they entered the Chu family. No matter how favored they were, if they didn't have children, they could only curry favor with the master or the mistress. Shi Jinbo's wife had a tight control over these concubines. No one dared to cause trouble under her watch. Shi Jinbo continued to be lovey-dovey with his concubines every day. Shi Jinbo's wife only pretended not to see and raised her 3 sons. Chu Xilan was Shi Jinbo's 4th son, but he wasn't born of Shi Jinbo's wife. Is he a concubine's illegitimate son? Yan asked. No, Lin Shuanghe said. Madame Chu is even stricter with her concubines than your father is with you. How could a concubine give birth to a son? Then, I don't know what exactly happened either. In short, one day during the Chu family's banquet, there was an additional 4-year-old son named Chu Zhao. Lin Shuanghe took another sip of tea. Although it wasn't said, everyone knew that Chu Zhao was most likely Chu Linfeng's illegitimate son. He Yan's eyes widened. Madame Chu was very careful, but she didn't expect Shi Jinbo to have such a trick up his sleeve. The child was already 4 years old, and recognized him in front of everyone. What else could happen? Lin Shuanghe spread his hands. If that was the case, Chu Xilan would only be Chu Xilan's illegitimate son. However, when Chu Xilan was 10 years old, he was registered under Madame Chu's name. Therefore, his current status is the 4th son of Shi Jinbo's official wife. Do you know why? Why? Because he was the favorite student of the current prime minister, Su Jingfu. He Yan was stunned. Su Jingfu again? Although Shi Jinbo was dissolute, he wasn't a kind father. I think Chu Xilan didn't have a good life under Madame Chu. I don't know how he was able to live until he was 10 years old, and then he hooked up with Su Jingfu. How could Shi Jinbo not give Prime Minister Su face? Later, he registered Chu Zhao under Madame Chu's name. It was probably Su Jingfu's idea. Then this 4th young master Chu is very powerful. Lin Shuanghe looked at He Yan. Do you think he's very powerful? Very powerful. As you said, he didn't have any external help in the residence. His father didn't love him, and his mother wasn't by his side. Now that he's the official wife's young master, he was able to get His Majesty to send him to the Liangzhou guards to deliver the imperial edict. It's very powerful that he was able to reach this step on his own. If he wasn't powerful, how could he have become Su Jingfu's favorite student? Lin Shuanghe shook his head and sighed. Then what about his mother? He Yan asked. Wasn't she taken into Count Shi Jinbo's residence? I don't know. Lin Shuanghe shook his head. I heard that she died after giving birth to him. If that wasn't the case, with Chu Xilan's current abilities, he should be able to let her live a better life. He Yan nodded thoughtfully. I see. It's a pity that military governor Xiao doesn't like 4th young master Chu. Xiao Ju and Su Jingfu were enemies, not friends. Chu Xilan was Su Jingfu's student. Naturally, he was also Xiao Ju's enemy. Brother, Lin Shuanghe said. If you had to choose between Huaijin and Chu Xilan, who would you side with? He Yan felt that this question was simply inconceivable. Why do you ask? I'm just curious as to what choice the young lady from Dawei will make. I don't even know Chu Xilan, He Yan said. Of course I'll side with the governor. Lin Shuanghe revealed a meaningful smile. There's no need to speak so early. You'll be able to see Chu Xilan at the celebration banquet tomorrow. He Yan. So what if I see him? What's so special about him? He Yan didn't expect that, just as Lin Shuanghe said. She would see the man of Dawei's dreams the next day. He was the fourth young master Chu Xilan, who could compete with Xiaoju. It was rare that it didn't snow that night. The next day, it just so happened to be a sunny day. Although the weather was cold, people felt warm when the sun shone on them. Ian got out of bed to eat porridge. She felt that the wound on her waist healed faster after being exposed to the sun. The Liangzhou guards were really strange. During the summer, they were so hot that they would cry and scream whenever they saw the sun. During the winter, they would be happy if they could even see half the sun. She couldn't go to the martial arts arena for day training now, but she felt that the sun was very good, so she decided to walk around the courtyard with her staff. She had just reached the door when she heard Song Taotao's voice. I saw this golden pastry roll first. It's mine. Immediately after, a woman's good-natured voice said, Miss, this pastry roll was specially made by our young master's chef. It didn't come from the Guard Institute's kitchen, so it's not yours. You think it's your young master's just because you say so? The young lady said angrily. It's all in the kitchen. How would I know if it was made by your chef? Since you have a chef, can't you just make another pastry roll? The process of making golden pastry rolls is troublesome. If we make another pastry roll, we'll miss the young master's mealtime. Then don't eat it. Miss, Yan couldn't listen anymore. He walked out and said, Miss Song. Song Taotao turned her head and looked over with the woman who was arguing with her. She said happily, Big brother this is a golden pastry roll. Do you want to try it? Yan. The woman also said, That's the young master's. Yan took the golden pastry roll and returned it to the woman. He said, She's just a child who doesn't know any better. Please don't mind her. Big brother Song Taotao stomped her feet in anger. Why did you return it to her? It's mine to begin with. Yan shook his head. She guessed that the young master the woman was talking about was probably the fourth young master of Count Shijin's estate, Chu Xilan. Chu Xilan and Xiaoju's relationship was so delicate. If he caused any trouble for Xiaoju because of this, the loss would outweigh the gain. Thank you, young master. The woman smiled sweetly at Yan. Yan was also stunned. For a moment, he was shocked by the young lady's beauty. There were very few young ladies in the Liang province guard. Excluding her, who was a fake, there were only Shen Muxue and Song Taotao. One was elegant and beautiful, while the other was adorable. Now that there was someone as beautiful as a peony, it was especially eye-catching. Even Chu Xilan's maidservant was this beautiful? Yan thought to himself. Previously, Lin Shuanghe had mentioned that Dawei women ranked their husbands first. Only an idiot would choose Chu Xilan. If the maidservant he picked was already this beautiful, how could a normal woman catch his eye? He might as well choose Xiaoju. Xiaoju was surrounded by men. Perhaps he had seen too many men, and now he saw a woman, so his requirements were much lower, and there was still a chance. Seeing Yan staring at the woman's face without saying anything, Song Taotao became even more anxious. She anxiously tugged on Yan's sleeve and said, Why are you looking at her? What's there to look at? The woman holding the golden pastry roll saw this and burst into laughter. Her smile was captivating. Ing Xiang, someone said. The maidservant named Ing Xiang immediately stopped smiling and bowed. Fourth young master. Fourth young master? Chu Xilan? Yan turned around, and his gaze fell on the person in front of him. It was a young man wearing a light jade-colored robe with extremely wide sleeves and a jade crown. He looked as noble and pure as an orchid, but also as handsome as a banished immortal. He had a faint smile on his face as he nodded at Yan. Yan frowned. This person's appearance was very familiar. When he saw Yan, he was also startled. After a moment, he smiled as if he had seen through Yan's thoughts. He stretched out his hand with his palm facing up and said softly, Little brother, you dropped something. Yan suddenly came back to his senses. She remembered where she had seen this person before. That day, she was still in Shuajing. For He Yunqing's tuition fee, she had racked her brains and had no choice but to go to Lutong village to gamble. However, she had been chased by the losers. After she had beaten them all, someone suddenly appeared and told her that she had dropped some money. That person's good looks were hard to forget as long as one had seen him. Now that he suddenly saw him here, because it was daytime, He Yan didn't recognize him for a moment. Instead, he recognized He Yan first. "You are fourth young Master Chu?" He Yan asked. Chu Xilan nodded. "That's me." He Yan was momentarily speechless. What kind of luck was this? What kind of coincidence was this? Just by casually climbing over a wall at night to fight, she was able to meet the man of Dewey's dreams. This one is Chu Zhao. Chu Xilan looked at He Yan with a smile. "Little brother and I can be considered old acquaintances, but I don't know your name. May I know your name?" He Yan could somewhat understand why He Yan was able to be on par with Xiao Ju. He hurriedly returned the greeting. "You flatter me. This one is He Yan. The Yan in grass and trees, He Yan in clear river and clear sea." Chu Zhao smiled. "That's a good name. But..." He looked around and asked in confusion. "Why is brother He here?" "Me," He Yan said. "I am a new recruit of the Liang Province Guards. However, I was injured a few days ago, so I did not go to the practice field for training." "I see." At this time, Song Taotao, who had been silent all this time, finally reacted. She carefully pulled on He Yan's hand. Perhaps it was because she saw that Chu Xilan was too handsome, but her aggressive attitude towards Ing Xiang instantly disappeared. She even felt a bit embarrassed. In a low voice she asked, "Brother He, who is this person? Do you know him?" This question was difficult to answer. She knew Chu Zhao, but she was not as familiar with him as Song Taotao thought. It was just that she had suddenly seen a familiar face in the Liang Province Guards, so she subconsciously became a bit excited. He Yan said, "This is the fourth young master of Count Shijin's residence. I met him once when I was in Shua capital." Chu Zhao smiled. "We can be considered old acquaintances." Chapter 120. When He Yan and Chu Xilan were talking, they didn't notice that Xiao Ju and Lin Shuanghe were standing behind a tree not too far away. Lin Shuanghe looked at them and asked curiously, "It seems that Sister He knows Chu Xilan? When I asked her yesterday, why did she say that she didn't know him?" "You asked her?" "Yes, I even asked her if you and Chu Xilan had a conflict, whose side would she stand on?" Lin Shuanghe waved his fan and smiled. "Do you want to know how she answered?" "Xiaoju, no. Why are you like this?" Lin Shuanghe said. "Let me tell you, Sister He said without thinking that she doesn't know Chu Xilan, so of course she would stand on your side." However, he looked at the two people talking in the distance and said, "She clearly knows him, so why did she say that she doesn't know him?" Xiao Ju sneered. "Why would you believe the words of a swindler?" "Swindler?" Lin Shuanghe looked at Xiao Ju. "What did she lie to you about? Could it be?" He thought of something and pretended to exclaim in a low voice, "She and Chu Xilan are in cahoots? Is she also one of Su Jingfu's people?" Xiao Ju didn't want to bother with him. As they were talking, the beautiful servant named Ing Xiang turned her head and saw them. She immediately called out from afar, "Military Governor Xiao, young Master Lin." There was nowhere to hide now. Lin Shuanghe stood up and nodded reservedly. "Fourth young Master Chu, brother He." He Yan asked, "Did you also come out to sunbathe?" "We just came out for a walk." Lin Shuanghe held his fan and looked at He Yan and Chu Zhao. He asked tentatively, "Did brother He and fourth young Master Chu know each other?" He Yan said, "It's just a chance encounter. I only found out that he was fourth young Master Chu after meeting him at the Liang Province Guard Institution. I was also very surprised." "What do you mean by that? Let's hear it." Lin Shuanghe was relentless. Chu Zhao stood there with a smile. He had no intention of taking the initiative to explain. Xiao Ju's gaze was also calm, but it made He Yan feel a little cold. Song Taotao, on the other hand, was very curious and asked, that's right. How did you two know each other?" That, He Yan could only brace himself and explain. "Previously, when I was in Shuajing, I went to Lutong village to gamble at night and won a lot of silver. I was chased by people and accidentally met fourth young Master Chu. Fourth young Master Chu found the money I left behind and returned it to me. At that time, I did not know his identity, so I hurriedly thanked him and left. Latong Villa? Song Taotao was shocked. Big brother, you're gambling? Didn't you say that your father is very strict with you and that you don't leave the house? Lin Shuanghe couldn't help but ask. Ian raised his head and met Xiao Ju's half-smile. He couldn't help but feel his scalp go numb. Taking a step back, he said, "At that time, I was forced to make a living. I only went there once. I haven't gone there since." Lin Shuanghe and Xiao Ju both knew that she was a woman. For a woman to go gambling alone at night, it was a bit too shocking. Furthermore, gambling was not a good thing, but to say it in front of this group of important people really made her feel ashamed. "I didn't think that brother he would come to the Liang Province Guard Institution," Chu Zhao said with a slight smile. "It can be said that you and I are fated." That night, I still remember how strong brother he was when he dealt with those thugs. "Are you very strong?" Lin Shuanghe asked Yan. Yan gave a perfunctory smile. "I was just lucky. At tonight's celebratory feast, I must drink a few more cups with brother he," Chu Zhao said. "That way we won't waste our fate." Yan. Thank you, fourth young Master Chu." She thought that this Chu Zhao was really too easy to get along with. As the son of Shi Jinbo, and now Su Jingfu's favorite student, no matter what, it was rare for him to be so patient and gentle to a normal recruit like her. Not to mention whether he was good or bad, just based on his ability to conduct himself, there was nothing to say. "Ing Xiang." Chu Zhao glanced at Song Taotao and said with a smile, "Give the golden roll to this little girl to eat. I don't need these." Song Taotao was overwhelmed by this favor. For me, yes," he said warmly. "If you really like it, I can have the chef make it for you every day." "But young master," Ing Xiang said hesitantly, "I brought the chef here especially for you." "I'm not particular about what I eat," Chu Zhao said. "There's no need to make these every day." Then, Song Taotao hesitated for a moment, then looked at him. "Thank you, fourth young Master Chu." "You're welcome." Yan looked at him, and felt that Lin Shuanghe had mentioned yesterday that De Wei was the #1 man in women's dreams. No wonder Chu Xilan had surpassed him. He looked like this, and he was so gentle and considerate to women. He was probably the type that everyone, regardless of age, would like. Ing Xiang handed the plate with the golden roll to Song Taotao. Chu Zhao looked at Xiao Ju. "Military Governor Xiao, where are you planning to go?" "The martial arts arena." Xiao Ju smiled. "Fourth young Master Chu, do you also want to go?" "There's no need for me to go." Chu Zhao smiled. "I'll just go back to my room and read for a while." Lin Shuanghe cupped his hands towards Chu Zhao. "Then I'll see you tonight." He then looked at Yan. "Brother He, what are you doing?" "Me?" Yan didn't dare to stay too long with Chu Zhao. This person was still Su Jingfu's student. Who knew if he was a friend or foe? He said, "The weather is good today. I'm planning to take advantage of the sun to walk around the courtyard and recover." "That's fine too," Lin Shuanghe instructed. "Just don't make too much of a commotion." Yan nodded. The group then parted ways. Because Chu Zhao lived nearby, Yan didn't dare to go out casually, even though she really did want to ask Chu Zhao about the situation in Shuajing. However, looking at the atmosphere between Xiao Ju and Chu Zhao, at least now wasn't a good time to ask. She went to the courtyard and tried to throw away the stick. She walked around for a while and only stopped when she felt tired. Then, she went back to her room to sleep and read. In the blink of an eye, it was already evening. Cheng Lisu knocked on the door early in the morning. "Big brother." Yan went to open the door for him. Cheng Lisu had changed into a new set of amber robes. The corners of the robes were embroidered with a group of black-tailed koi fish. He was in high spirits and grabbed Yan's hand. "I was afraid that you would be sleeping, so I didn't dare to come early. Look at my new robes. Do you think they look good?" "Yan, can I ask you a question?" "What is it?" "Why do you have koi fish embroidered on every piece of clothing?" When they were in Liangzhou City, Cheng Lisu gave her a set of robes with koi fish embroidered on the corners. Yan had wanted to ask him for a long time. Was there a special meaning behind it? "You don't know?" Chung Lisu turned around. Speaking of which, my father fell in love with my mother at first sight. However, my mother's family had already taken her place in another family. They disliked my father because he was 2 years younger than my mother. My father bribed the cook in the residence to send the koi fish to my mother's small kitchen. When the cook was butchering the koi fish, he saw the letter inside. My mother was moved by the letter. Later, she persuaded my grandmother to marry my father. Chung Lisu usually didn't remember poetry and literature. However, he remembered it by heart now. He spoke with fervor and assurance. The guests came from afar, leaving me a pair of koi fish. Who are cooked koi fish, and there was a ruler in the book. Kneeling and reading the book, what was in the book? On the top, it said to be longing for each other. On the bottom, it said to be eating more rice. He proudly said, "My name came from this book." Hien was stunned. "It's that interesting?" "That's right." Chung Lisu turned around and showed Hien the koi embroidery on his body. Later on, my clothes and hairpins were mostly in the shape of a koi fish. After all, the koi fish were my parents' matchmakers. Wearing it is wearing my parents' love for me. At this moment, Hien was truly envious of Chung Lisu. She said, "Your parents are so good." "Of course." Chung Lisu finished speaking and looked at Hien. "Big brother, aren't you going to wear something else for tonight's celebration?" Hien lowered his head and looked at himself. "What's wrong with wearing this? Isn't everyone dressed like this?" She was still wearing the uniform of the Liang Province Guards. Today, she specially wore red for the celebration. "But you're the one who defeated Raidamuko. It's too plain to dress like this." "I don't have any other clothes," Hien said. "This is good. Let's go. The instructor can't wait." Chung Lisu shrugged and didn't force her. She closed the door for her, and the two of them walked to the wilderness at the foot of Baiyue Mountain. Today was the celebration banquet to celebrate the Liang Province Guard's victory over Raidamuzi's rebel army. There was no snow tonight, but it was colder than usual. A bonfire burned in the wilderness. The recruits sat on the ground and drank wine and ate meat. Although they were drinking wine and eating meat, compared to the previous Mid-Autumn festival, it was much more desolate. After all, they had just lost their comrades and were still traumatized from the war. A celebration was a little forced. The rewards had already been distributed to the instructors. Xiaoju was very generous and distributed all the spoils of war to the soldiers. She didn't keep the rewards from Her Majesty for herself either. When Chung Lisu arrived at the wilderness, she went to find Xiaoju. Hien, on the other hand, went to the other side of Mount Hong. These days she did not go to the martial arts arena, so the number of times she met with them was much less. Xiaomai saw him and shouted, "Ehigu, you're here." Hien sat down beside her. "How are you?" Hongshan handed her a piece of roasted rabbit meat. "Are you feeling better? I see that you're not holding a stick anymore. Can you go now?" Hien took the rabbit meat. The rabbit meat was roasted until it was sizzling with oil. During the winter, all the wild beasts were hibernating, so rabbits were difficult to catch. Just the smell of it made her hungry. She took a bite and chewed as she said, "Not bad. In another 2 months, I'll be able to fight alongside you all again." "Forget it," Wang Ba said with disgust. "Aren't you the only one in the limelight every time? I heard that the higher-ups gave you 10 taels of silver as a reward." He was very jealous. "You're rich. Brother, he almost lost his life. 10 taels of silver is nothing. He should get a bigger share." Jiang Jiao said, "But I thought that brother he would get a promotion this time. I didn't expect that he didn't." Hien was angry when this matter was brought up. Logically speaking, she made a contribution and helped the Liang Province Guards. No matter what, she shouldn't be a small soldier. Even if she didn't get a promotion, she should go to the 9 Flags Battalion. Even if she didn't go to the 9 Flags Battalion, she should go to the Vanguard Battalion. But now, she received more rewards than normal recruits, but promotion? She didn't even see a shadow. Was it so hard to be promoted as a soldier under Xiaoju? "Don't say any more. If you continue, brother, he will get angry again." Huang Xiong saw that she was unhappy and said, "You've already won over everyone in the Liang Province Guards. Even if it's not now, you'll get a promotion sooner or later. Don't worry." Hien went against her conscience and said, I'm not worried. It was just that she tossed and turned on her bed in the middle of the night. She wanted nothing more than to rush into the room next door and grab Xiaoju and ask her why. Although the celebratory banquet was a celebratory banquet, Xiaoju wasn't here. The rewards had already been distributed to everyone, so tonight was just a gathering of the recruits. The Liang province guards were next to Mount Baiyue, while the southern prefecture guards were next to Wulu River. They minded their own business. Shirtu poured Hien a bowl of wine and said, "Drink." Hien stared at the wine in the bowl. "I'm injured right now. I can't drink so much." "That's right. I almost forgot." Hong Shan took the bowl away. "Then don't drink. Just drink water." Hien said, "Okay." After sitting for a while, she heard someone call her from behind. "Brother He." Hien turned around and was stunned. It was actually Chu Zhao. By Chu Zhao's side there was also that beautiful maidservant Ing Xiang. It was rare to see such a beautiful woman in the Liang province guards. For a moment, Hong Shan and the others were stunned. Wang Ba whispered, "This brat. Why does he always have such good luck with women?" He thought that he was whispering, but everyone present heard him. Ing Xiang couldn't help but laugh. Chu Zhao also laughed. "I already told Brother He that I would definitely drink with you today," Ing Xiang said. "Before our young master came he specially brought Chang and Chun. Please drink with us, young master He." As soon as she finished speaking, she heard Wang Ba gulp loudly. Hien. She was in a bit of a dilemma. If she knew that she was drinking with Chu Zhao, would Xiaoju think that she was in cahoots with Chu Zhao? It would really be snowing in June. As if he could see her dilemma, Chu Zhao smiled and said, "It's just a cup. If it's inconvenient for Brother He, then it's fine." Hien had always been amenable to coaxing, but not coercion. Seeing such an immortal young master being so gentle, and knowing when to advance or retreat, she felt a bit apologetic. She wasn't some important person, so why would he personally invite her? It was just a cup of wine. She could just treat it as returning the favor of that silver ingot. Hien said, "It's just a cup of wine. There's nothing inconvenient about it." "Then please follow this servant, young master He." Ing Xiang turned around with a smile. Hien originally thought that Chu Zhao was talking about drinking in the wilderness where the recruits were. Who would have thought that he would bring her to Chu Zhao's room? She didn't know if Xiaoju was using her position to take revenge, but Chu Zhao's room really couldn't be considered luxurious. It couldn't even compare to Cheng Li Su's room. It was just a bit better than the bunk rooms the recruits had. However, the courtyard was very large. On the stone bench in the courtyard, there was a jug of wine and some dried fruits and snacks. "I didn't know what young master He likes to eat, so I casually prepared some side dishes," Ing Xiang said, ashamed. "If it's not to your liking, I ask that young master He be more tolerant. There's no need to be so polite. It's already very good." Hien was overwhelmed by the favor. She was only a recruit in the Liang province guard. This was the first time she was treated like someone with status. However, Hien was also secretly curious. Why was Chu Zhao treating her so well? She was just a recruit. There was no need to be so polite. Just as she was thinking this, Ing Xiang had already picked up the white jade jug on the table and poured it into 2 jade cups. She smiled and said, "I heard young Master Lin say that young master He is injured, so it is inconvenient for you to drink. This spring of Chang, and is mild and not strong. It is sweet in the mouth. Young master He should be fine after drinking a little." Hien smiled and said, "Miss Ing Xiang is still the most considerate." Ing Xiang pursed her lips and smiled. She put down the jug of wine, and retreated behind Chu Zhao. "Last time when I saw Brother He in Shuajing, I was in too much of a hurry and didn't get to know you well." Chu Zhao smiled and said, "Since we met in Liang province, it seems that we are fated to meet. Let's drink a toast." He raised his wine cup and lightly tapped it against the air in front of Hien. Hien understood and raised his wine cup as well. He thought to himself, last time during the middle of autumn, he got drunk and got into a fight with Xiaoju. He even crushed his zither. He definitely couldn't repeat the same mistake tonight. However, this wine wasn't strong, so she wouldn't get drunk like last time. Moreover, she only drank a little, so there shouldn't be any problems. She tilted her head back and poured all the wine in the wine cup down her throat. He Yan was stunned. Chu Zhao was also stunned. After a long while, Chu Zhao smiled and said, "Brother, he is indeed forthright." He Yan. He had a habit of drinking in one gulp. He wanted to drink in small sips, but his hands were subconsciously moving. When he came back to his senses, he regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. He really wanted to scold himself. Why couldn't I control my hands? However, He Yan praised, "What a fragrant wine." Ing Xiang snickered. Chang and Spring isn't something you can drink every day. In the Chu estate, there's only one remaining pot left this year, and it's here. Is it that precious? He Yan was shocked and pushed the wine cup back. He didn't dare to drink anymore. Although this wine is precious, it can't be compared to you, brother He. Chu Zhao smiled. He reached out to take the wine pot and filled He Yan's empty wine cup. Without Chang and Spring, you can buy the 18 immortals. Without like-minded friends, you won't be able to find them so easily. He Yan, she said, "Brother Chu, do you know that you're the #1 dreamer of all the women in Dawei?" Chu Zhao was stunned. Now, I think you can add men into the list. He was so gentle and generous to men. Any man who stayed with him would be in danger. The courtyard was silent. After a while, Chu Zhao laughed heartily. He shook his head and said, "Brother He, you're really interesting." "I'm telling the truth." He Yan was very sincere. "Brother He, you flatter me." He waved his hand. "I don't dare to be #1. Chang and Spring smelled refreshing. It wasn't as fragrant and strong as the 18 immortals, but it was quite strong. He Yan felt a little lightheaded. When he saw the gentle and charming smile of the person in front of him, he raised his wine cup and said, "Brother Chu, you deserve it. Let me toast you." He downed the wine in one gulp. On the other side, Lin Shuanghe was looking around for He Yan. "Have you seen He Yan?" he asked. Xiao Mai had finished eating the barbecued meat. She went to steal some from the bonfire. When she heard him, she turned around and said, "Are you looking for a Higu?" A Higu was just taken away by 4th young Master Chu from the capital. Chu Zhao. Lin Shuanghe asked curiously, "Why did he take Brother He away?" "To drink." Xiao Mai scratched her head. He said he would treat a Higu to a taste of Chang and Spring. When Lin Shuanghe heard the news, he immediately rushed back. When he reached Xiao Ju's room, the door wasn't closed. He pushed it open. Xiao Ju was sitting at the table, wiping her sword. Chang and Spring wasn't an ordinary sword. It had to be cleaned every day to ensure that the blade was crystal clear. Lin Shuanghe asked, "Do you know where He Yan went?" Xiao Ju didn't bother to answer him. Chu Zhao took him to drink. Xiao Ju looked up. "So, aren't you worried, big brother?" Lin Shuanghe slammed his fan on the table. "That's Chu Zhao we're talking about. Move aside." Xiao Ju said unhappily, "You're blocking the light." Lin Shuanghe moved to the side. "Don't wipe it. In public, Chu Zhao is Su Jingfu's man. If he wants to recruit He Yan to his camp, what will you do? I heard that He Yan's strength is one of the best in the Liangzhou guards. If such a talent falls into Su Jingfu's hands, it will be very troublesome." When he saw that Xiao Ju's expression didn't change, he went around to the other side. "In private? How can you let your girl drink with another man?" As soon as he said this, Xiao Ju stopped what he was doing. He looked up and glanced at Lin Shuanghe. "Who told you that she's mine? Come on." Lin Shuanghe obviously didn't believe him. "If she's not yours, how can you let her live next door with a door in between? You even let her pick the lock. How come I didn't realize that you could do this before? Are you interested?" "Xiaoju, if you don't have anything else to say, then get out. Don't bother me." "Xiao Huijin, you're not Chu Xilan's opponent if you're so fierce." As he spoke, he heard a rustling sound coming from the middle door of the house, as if a mouse was shuttling in and out of the clutter. The two of them looked up and saw a silver wire sticking out of the one keyhole on the door. The silver wire twisted in a crooked manner and accurately pushed the lock pin inwards. With a clack, the lock fell to the ground and the door opened. Lin Shuanghe clapped his hands. "Good skill." Then he looked at Xiao Ju. "And you said she's not yours?" Xiao Ju was speechless for a moment and stood up. Ian walked over from the door. She walked very slowly and steadily. When she saw Lin Shuanghe, She even greeted Lin Shuanghe with her hands cupped together. Brother Lin. Lin Shuanghe. Why aren't you calling me Dr. Lin anymore? He Yan acted as if she didn't see him and walked over to Xiaoju. Xiaoju's gaze fell on He Yan. The young man was wearing the red uniform of the Liang province guards. His hair was neat and tidy as he bowed respectfully to Lin Shuanghe. At this moment, Lin Shuanghe and Xiaoju were both stunned. The window wasn't closed and the wind blew in, causing the scrolls on the table to flip slightly. It brought with it a burst of coolness and a faintly discernible aroma of wine. It was faint but not real. The sweet and refreshing smell was like the spring day in Chang'an City, sparkling and beautiful. Her gaze was even more sparkling than the spring sun. Xiaoju felt a chill run down his spine as he felt a sense of déjà vu. She vaguely remembered that someone had looked at her with the same gaze on the night of mid-autumn. Have you been drinking? As he spoke, he subconsciously pushed Wan Xiangqing closer. When this person was drunk, it was impossible to tell if she was sober or not just by looking at her face. However, her actions would only be inconceivable. Lin Shuanghe smiled and picked up his tea, planning to take a sip and watch the show. He Yan looked up and gave Xiaoju a big smile. I can memorize the way to university now, father. Lin Shuanghe spat out his tea. Chapter 121. I know how to recite, father. Xiaoju looked at her in disbelief. What did you just call me? He Yan stared at him with clear eyes and said seriously, the way of the university is to be virtuous, to be close to the people, and to stop at being virtuous. Knowing when to stop leads to steadfastness. Being calm leads to tranquility. Being calm leads to thoughtfulness. Being straightforward leads to virtue. There is a root and an end to everything. And there is a beginning and end to everything. Knowledge is to investigate things. One is to cultivate one's body. The thickest is the thinnest, and the thinnest is the last. Lin Shuanghe was stunned at first, but then he gradually reacted. He pointed at He Yan and asked Xiaoju, Is my little sister He drunk? He Yan suddenly rushed over and threw herself into Xiaoju's arms. She hugged his waist and almost pushed Xiaoju back 2 steps. She buried her face in his chest and rubbed it. She stammered, Father, I know how to recite. I've improved. There was a dead silence in the room. It was hard to describe Xiaoju's ugly expression with just a few words. Lin Shuanghe covered his face and his shoulders shook. He couldn't stop laughing. Huaijin, I've seen people treat you like a husband, but this is the first time I've seen someone treat you like a father. How does it feel to be a father? This little girl is too obedient. She's very good at reciting books. She's very talented. As if encouraged by Lin Shuanghe's words, He Yan raised her head from Xiaoju's chest and stared at Xiaoju with sparkling eyes. Father, I'm now the first in the Liangzhou guards. Xiaoju grabbed her arm and tried to pull her hand away from his waist. Let go. No. He Yan was very strong. Xiaoju didn't know if it was because she threw rocks every day, but he couldn't pull her hand away. He Yan raised his head and looked at him. You can test me. I can answer anything. She looked like a child who got first place and wagged her tail to show off. Xiaoju facepalmed. Let go first. No. She hugged Xiaoju's waist even tighter and wanted to stick her whole body to him. Xiaoju desperately moved back, trying to distance himself from her and not let his body touch hers. Unfortunately, it was futile. Xiaoju wanted to pull He Yan's hand away. Lin Shuanghe said, Sister He Yan is still injured. If you move her, you'll to do it. Another half a year has passed, and it's not good. Xiaoju's to Xiaoju. Just let her hug you for a while. To be? She was a little girl who had come all the way to Liangzhou and hadn't been home for so long. She must be missing her father. He made a hugging gesture. Can't you give her the warmth of home? Don't be so petty. You're not the one who's at a disadvantage. Xiaoju was about to speak, but the person in her arms had already buried her head in her chest. She continued to recite in a muffled voice. You are a general. You are both tough and soft. You are also a general. Mortals judge generals by their bravery. Bravery is one of the few things that make up a general. A brave man must be flexible. If he is flexible and does not know the benefits, it is impossible. Therefore, there are 5 things to be cautious about. The first is reason, the second is preparation, the third is fruit, the fourth is war, and the fifth is agreement. Reason is to govern the masses as if they are widows. Preparation is to go out as if they are facing the enemy. Fruit is to face the enemy without thinking. Although the war is to defeat the enemy, the war is to start. Receiving an order and not rejecting it. Returning after defeating the enemy is the etiquette of a general. The day my teacher came out, there was glory in death, no disgrace in life. Lin Shuanghe listened in a daze. He knew the previous one, but he didn't know this one. He asked Xiaoju, "What is my Himimi reciting?" Wuxi's Art of War treatise on generals. Xiaoju was slightly surprised. She actually knew this? My Himimi is really knowledgeable. Lin Shuanghe praised. You can even recite this. Of course. Yan poked her head out from Xiaoju's arms. As a general, this is how it should be. Himimi is really ambitious. Lin Shuanghe smiled and said, You want to be a general? I was originally a female general. Good. Lin Shuanghe smiled and covered his face with his fan. Look at your ability. Yan raised her head again and looked up at Xiaoju. She happily asked, Father, did I recite it well? Father again. Xiaoju's feelings at this moment were indescribable. Outside the door, Shen Han had just walked in when he saw two people hugging through the open window. When he looked again, it was actually Xiaoju hugging Yan. Yan hugged Xiaoju's waist and said something softly. Shen Han was stunned and his face turned red. He only felt that it was unbelievable. Damn it! Although he already knew that the relationship between these two was not ordinary, seeing such an intimate scene with his own eyes was still shocking. Shen Han pondered the meaning of Xiaoju's words. Could it be that she still had feelings for Yan? Perhaps they had already renewed their previous relationship and reunited? There was still Lin Shuanghe in the room. She just stood there and watched. Didn't she feel that she was the extra one? Xiaoju was being intimate with Yan. Didn't she feel awkward being watched by Lin Shuanghe? The big shots from Shuajing were really hard to understand. In an instant, Shen Han felt tired. He turned around and tiptoed away. Forget it. I'll just pretend that I didn't see anything. In the room, Lin Shuanghe was about to die of laughter. Xiaoju's face was ashen. She tried several times to pull Yan down but failed. Yan hugged his waist tightly as if he was hugging a family heirloom. Father, I've improved. I'm number one now. Why aren't you saying anything? She was a little sad. Can you praise me? Xiaoju said. I'm not your father. It would have been better if he didn't say this. As soon as he said this, Yan's eyes suddenly filled with tears. She looked at him tearfully as if he had done something evil. She asked, You don't recognize me either? Xiaoju paused. Suddenly, an inexplicable sense of irritation appeared in his heart. He was most afraid of women's tears. Especially in this situation. It seemed as if he was the one who made Yan cry. Sure enough, the divine hand in white, who was most protective of girls, immediately stood up for his newly recognized sister. He said, It's just a matter of one sentence. Look at how you made the little girl cry. She's such a sensible and smart child. If you don't recognize her, others will rush to recognize her. Xiao Huijin, quickly praise her. Immediately right now. Xiaoju was speechless. He suppressed his anger and lowered his head to look at her. She was still dressed like a teenager, but her frowning and pitiful appearance was really a little girl. Perhaps she had mistaken him for He Sui. Oh, but was He Sui usually very strict with her? Even when he was drunk, he had to gain his father's approval. In an instant, Xiaoju saw his own shadow in this girl. He was discouraged and resigned to his fate. He gave up trying to pull her hand and said, You did very well. Really? Yan immediately looked at him with sparkling eyes. Really? Xiaoju spoke against his conscience. Thank you. She was a little embarrassed. I'll do better next time. I'll make father even more proud. Xiaoju had a splitting headache. He only said, Then let go of me first. You're hugging me too tightly. But I really like hugging father. Yan revealed a very satisfied smile. She greedily hugged him, and did not want to let go. I've wanted to hug father like this for a long time. Why can my brothers and sisters do it, but I can't? Lin Shuanghe was still smiling. When he heard this, His heart ached so much that tears almost fell. He only said, "Is Sister He being bullied at home? Her father doesn't even hug her?" Xiaoju was also very puzzled. In the secret letter from Shuajing, He Sui only had one son and one daughter. He Yan only had one brother. How could he have a sister? "I'm number one now." He Yan stared at Xiaoju and said, "Father, aren't you happy?" "Xiaoju," he said expressionlessly, "I'm very happy." "Then what do I get as a reward?" "Reward?" Xiaoju frowned. "What reward do you want?" He Yan rubbed her face against the buttons in front of his lapel. Her face was very hot, and it was very cool. However, Xiaoju's body stiffened. "You don't touch me." As soon as he said this, he saw He Yan let go of his lapel. She felt something from his waist and proudly showed it to Xiaoju. "I want this." "That won't do." Xiaoju reached out to snatch it, but He Yan dodged. This person was drunk and her mind was not clear. However, she was still agile and her footsteps were not messy. Just by looking at her appearance, one could not tell that she was drunk. He Yan lowered her head and looked at the thing in her hand. It was a jade pendant carved with a snake. It was a rare black jade. It was warm and cold to the touch. One look and she knew it was a treasure. She loved it so much that she could not put it down. "Thank you, father." Xiaoju was so angry that he laughed. "I didn't say I'm giving it to you." Lin Shuanghe stopped him from snatching the jade. He said, "Why are you arguing with a drunk person? Let her play with it now. Tomorrow when you're sober, you can ask her for medicine. How can she not give it to you?" However, he touched his chin. "Sister, he has good taste. She saw the most valuable thing on you at first glance. Not bad." Xiaoju was too lazy to pay attention to him. However, she did not try to snatch the jade from He Yan. "Watch me." Lin Shuanghe walked in front of He Yan and coughed lightly. "Brother He, let me ask you. Do you like this jade?" He Yan played with the jade pendant in his hand. "I like it. Do you like Chu Xilan?" "Chu Xilan?" He Yan asked in confusion. "Who is that?" "You're drunk and don't remember this person. It seems like you're not with Chu Zhao." Lin Shuanghe smiled. "Then do you like Xiaoju?" "Xiaoju. Are you done?" He Yan's answer was unexpected. She looked up as if she was thinking about the name. After a while she nodded. "I like it." Lin Shuanghe's eyes lit up. "What do you like about him?" "Medicine for me." He Yan held his head. "I'm so sleepy." After he finished speaking, he fell on the soft couch and fell asleep. Lin Shuanghe stood up straight. She said, "Waist." Xiaoju did not hear what He Yan said. She was a bit annoyed. "What?" "She likes your waist." Lin Shuanghe opened his fan. "She's too direct." Xiaoju threw a teacup at him. "Get lost." On the other side, Xiang put away the empty wine pot in the room. The smell of spring in Chang and still lingered in the courtyard. Chu Zhao took off his outer garment and sat down on the couch wearing only his inner garment. The beds in the Liang province guards were not as hard as the beds in the capital. Although they were not as hard as the beds, they were not comfortable. Xiang walked over and knelt in front of the couch. "Young master, this servant did not do a good job and was not able to win over He Yan." The youth called He Yan was very young. Just now he drank a pot of wine and looked drunk. However, he wanted to discuss the art of war with Chu Zhao. Chu Zhao did not understand the art of war, so he listened to the youth speak with assurance. In the end, he probably got tired and left alone. Xiang was very confident in her appearance. Although she did not dare to say that everyone would fall for her beauty, such as Xiao Huijin and Chu Xilan, she was more than enough to deal with a new recruit of the Liang province guards. Who knew that tonight, no matter how gentle and flirtatious she appeared, He Yan's gaze was only filled with admiration and no evil thoughts. Men had different tastes for women, and it could be seen at a glance. Although He Yan was shocked by her beauty, he did not have any other thoughts. This made Xiang feel defeated. When her master, Chu Zhao, heard this, he was stunned for a moment. Then he shook his head and smiled. "It's not your fault." Xiang raised her head. "Fourth young master." Chu Zhao looked at the incense burning on the table in the room. This was the calming incense he had brought from the capital. He was always a light sleeper, so he always brought it with him wherever he went. His eyes flashed back to when he caught a glimpse of the woman's lively eyes under the white veil at the horse track in the capital. Who would have thought that there would be a woman among the new recruits of the Liang Province Guards? He slowly smiled. When He Yan woke up, he was in his own room. He was sleeping soundly with half of his legs dangling off the bed. He did not even cover himself with a blanket. Outside the room, the sun was just right. A ray of light shone in through the window. It was so bright that it hurt his eyes. For a moment, he could not tell whether it was day or night. He Yan sat up and shook his head. He did not feel the pain of a hangover. On the contrary, he felt refreshed. She thought to herself that Chang and Spring was indeed much better than the inferior yellow wine of the Liang Province Guards. Although the alcohol was strong, it did not go to the head. There was a reason why it was expensive. Last night, she had been dragged away by Chu Zhao and his servant girl. She had gone to Chu Zhao's room to drink 2 cups of wine. She seemed to have drunk a bit too much. The alcohol had gotten to her head and made her very sleepy. She did not know when she had returned to her room and fell asleep. However, judging from the current situation, she should not have caused any trouble like last time. He Yan planned to get out of bed and pour himself a cup of tea. After a night's sleep, he was very thirsty. As soon as he moved, he felt something in his hand. When he looked down, he found that his right hand was tightly clutching something that looked like a jade pendant. What kind of toy was this? When did it get into her hand? He Yan was stunned for a moment. He opened his palm and carefully examined it. The black jade pendant in his palm was not big, but it was very delicately carved. The snake pattern was complicated and gorgeous. As she moved, it emitted a gentle light. It did not look like an ordinary jade pendant. Did she get drunk and rob someone last night? He Yan and the jade pendant stared at each other for a moment. They were still at a loss. Forget it. He might as well go out and ask someone else. He Yan thought for a moment. He first put the jade pendant on the table. Then, he got up and washed up. When he was done, he grabbed the jade pendant and went out. He also wanted to ask Song Tao Tao if there were any leftover steamed buns. He had woken up too late in the morning and did not even make it in time for breakfast. As soon as he went out, he met Shen Wuxia, who lived not far from here. Shen Wuxia was carrying a medicine tray to the medical hall. When he saw He Yan, he stopped and greeted He Yan. "Miss Shen," He Yan asked, "is eldest Miss Song here? I have something to discuss with her." Shen Wuxia said, "She is not in the room. She went to the martial arts arena. Why are you looking for her? If it is important, I will help you pass on the message when she comes back later." He Yan scratched his head. "It is not a big deal. Since she is not here, forget it." He turned around and was about to leave. When he moved, the jade pendant in his hand was revealed. Shen Wuxia was stunned. He hesitated and said, "This jade, She seemed to know who the owner of this jade pendant was. Miss Shen has seen this jade pendant before." He Yan smiled calmly. Shen Wuxia still looked surprised. "Why do you have the governor's jade pendant?" Xiaoju's jade pendant, why is it with her?" He Yan also wanted to ask this question. She also did not know. What did she do when she was drunk last night? Did she fight with Xiaoju again and snatch his jade pendant? Looking at Shen Wuxia's suspicious eyes, He Yan coughed twice. "This is indeed the governor's jade pendant. When we were talking yesterday, Governor felt that it was inconvenient to wear it, so he asked me to keep it for him for the time being. I was about to give it back to him. But, Miss Shen, brother Lin Shuanghe's voice came from behind. He must have heard the conversation between He Yan and Shen Wuxia. He smiled and waved his fan. "Miss Shen, are you going to the medical center?" Shen Wuxia nodded slightly. "Then go quickly. The medicine will be cold if you are late." He then said to He Yan, "Brother you have not eaten yet, right? I still have some pastries. Just eat some to fill your stomach." He Yan said, "Thank you, young Master Lin." Shen Wuxia bid farewell to the two of them. He Yan followed Lin Shuanghe to his room. She hesitated and wanted to ask questions, but she did not know where to start. Lin Shuanghe put a few plates of salty pastries on the table and poured a cup of hot tea for her. Seeing her hesitant appearance, he smiled and said, "Are you still thinking about the jade pendant?" He Yan was surprised. "You know, last night, When Sister He got drunk and entered the room in Huijin, I was there from beginning to end. Lin Shuanghe supported his chin with the handle of his fan. Sister He really opened my eyes. He Yan felt more and more uneasy after hearing his words. But thinking carefully, she always had a sense of propriety. It was impossible for her to make a scene and lose her composure after getting drunk. At most, she would spar with Xiaoju. But how could Xiaoju be so weak? Not only was she beaten up, but she also had the jade pendant stolen from her? Last night. I didn't do anything out of line, right? She asked tentatively. It would have been better if she did not ask. As soon as she said this, Lin Shuanghe seemed to have thought of an interesting scene. He first tried to hold back his laughter, then couldn't hold it in anymore. He slapped the table and laughed wildly. He Yan looked at this refined young man who was laughing uncontrollably. He did not care about his image at all. He did not look like the elegant young master from Shuo capital. He Yan was so anxious that her heart was scratching. She waited for Lin Shuanghe to finish laughing before asking, Dr. Lin, what did I do to make you laugh so hard? Nothing. Lin Shuanghe waved his hand and smiled. Actually, it was nothing big. I just wanted to let Xiao Huijin experience what it feels like to be a father at such a young age. He Yan dropped the scallion pastry in her hand onto the table. Did I call him father? Lin Shuanghe asked curiously. You actually still remember? He Yan covered her face. She really did not remember. But she remembered that when she was young, there was also a family banquet. At that time, she had gone from the last place to the third place from the bottom, hoping to be praised by her father. In the end, no one cared. During the family banquet, she accidentally drank a mouthful of plum wine as osmanthus do. At that time, He Yan had not yet joined the army. She did not have the tolerance to drink 1,000 cups and was drunk after 1 cup. After she was drunk, she hugged He Yuanliang's leg and called him father. She even asked He Yuanliang for a reward. When she woke up the next day, the He family said that it was because He Yuanxing was too strict with He Yan. That was why she thought that second uncle was acting coquettishly. Madame He, however, did not like it and scolded her in the room so that she would not say anything wrong in the future. But in the end, it became a hurdle in her heart that she could not get over. Because she had never been acknowledged, she especially looked forward to it. Because she saw other sisters acting coquettishly with their fathers, she longed for her father to pat her on the head and say, "You did well." Perhaps it was because she saw Lin Shuanghe in the Liangzhou Guards, which reminded her of the things that happened when she was young. What she thought about during the day, she dreamed about it at night. Even when she was drunk, she could not avoid it. Instead, she became a joke. Forget it. What was done. So what if she could turn back time? He Yan put the jade in her hand on the table. What is this? This is Huijin's reward for you. Lin Shuanghe held back his laughter. Reward? You memorized very well. You memorized The Way of University and Wuxia's Art of War in front of Huijin. Huijin was very pleased and gave you this jade as a reward. He Yan. I snatched it, didn't I? Lin Shuanghe failed to hold back his laughter and laughed loudly. As he laughed, he slapped his fan. Sister He, you didn't see Huijin's face at that time. I've known him for so long, but it's the first time I've seen him so embarrassed. Which woman in this world would dare to hug him and not let go? He was forced to retreat step by step. He even gave away his family heirloom jade and had nothing to say? Only you, sister. He cupped his fists at He Yan. Only you. He Yan was dizzy from his words. She caught the key words in his words. Family heirloom? She looked at the jade on the table. This one. The night before Madame Zhao's zodiac, she dreamed of a big black snake with 2 pieces of jade in its mouth. It was circling around the pillar in front of their residence. Later, after Xiao Jing was born, she took the name Ruby. There was a bandit gentleman, like gold or tin, like a jade. After Xiao Ju was born, her family name was Huijin. He Yan said. Huijin held Yushi so he couldn't show his poverty. Yes, that's what it means. Lin Shuanghe put away his fan. The 2 brothers' names are both related to jade. Because Madame Xiao dreamed of the big black snake, the Empress Dowager bestowed a 2-colored jade, half black and half white. It was made into 2 jade pendants with snake patterns. The white one was given to Xiao Ruby, and the black one was given to Xiao Huijin. Ever since I've known Xiao Huijin, I've never seen this jade pendant leave his body. He Yan looked at the jade pendant in front of her, and suddenly felt that it weighed more than 1,000 pounds of gold. That's why I said, Sister He, you have a very good eye. Lin Shuanghe praised. Of Xiao Huijin's entire body, apart from himself, this jade pendant is the most valuable thing. You didn't miss out on either of them and took them all. Brilliant, amazing, beautiful. Chapter 122. On the way to the practice field, Yan was still thinking about what Lin Shuanghe had said. The snake-patterned black jade in her hand was as cold as water. In the winter, it was so cold that it cleared her mind. Yesterday he had gotten drunk and stolen Xiao Ju's jade. To be able to do such a shocking thing. It seemed that in the future, she really couldn't drink as she pleased. As Yan thought, she had already reached the side of the practice field. In front of Xiao Ju stood a person wearing the black armor of the Southern Fu army. His head was lowered and he didn't speak. When he got closer, Xiao Ju said coldly, "This is your formation?" That person was probably his vice commander, the leader in charge of the Southern Fu army's formation. He looked tall and strong, but in front of Xiao Ju, he was like a child who had made a mistake. He lowered his head and said, "This subordinate knows his mistake. Everyone might not be used to the snowy weather in Liangzhou. Not used to it." Second young master Xiao glanced at him and asked, "Do you need me to teach you how to get used to it?" Yan clearly saw that the tall and sturdy man was so frightened by Xiao Ju's words that he trembled. He said, "This subordinate will take them to train right now." "Double the daily training," Xiao Ju said calmly. "If this happens again, you don't have to stay in the Liangzhou guard anymore." "Yes." The man obediently left again. Yan craned his neck to look at the martial arts field. He saw that after the man left, he poured a torrent of abuse on the southern prefecture soldiers standing in front of him, and once again began to drill the military formation. He couldn't help but be speechless. Xiao Ju's attitude towards the southern prefecture soldiers was different from his attitude towards the Liang province guard recruits. He rarely showed his face towards the Liang province guard recruits, while he was more distant towards Shen Han and the others, and was even more courteous. Only when he faced the Southern Fu army did he truly show his usual self. Casual, cold, like a military governor who would scold people at the slightest disagreement. When she was General Fei Hong, was she also this annoying? Yan silently reflected on himself. Just as she was thinking, Xiao Ju turned around. When she saw her, she paused for a moment before asking impatiently, "What are you doing here again?" Yan smiled apologetically and stretched out her palm. There was a piece of black jade lying in her palm. She said, "Governor, you seem to have left something with me last night. I'm specially returning it to you." "Return?" Xiao Ju chewed on the word her playfully. She bent over and stared into her eyes. Her lips twitched as she said indifferently, "My dear daughter is so considerate." Yan. Why was this person so vengeful? Besides, even if she called him daddy, it was Xiao Ju who took advantage of her. Why did Xiao Ju make it sound like she had done something unforgivable? Yan tried his best to maintain his composure and only said, "Governor, you really know how to joke. This piece of black jade looks very precious. Governor, please don't lose it in the future. You should take good care of it." She picked up the jade and reached out to touch Xiao Ju's waist. Xiao Ju took a step back and looked alarmed. "What are you doing?" "I'm putting it on for you." Yan had an innocent look on her face. "Isn't this jade supposed to be tied around the waist?" Xiao Ju suddenly remembered what Lin Shuanghe had said yesterday. "She likes your waist." Yan wanted to step forward, but Xiao Ju raised his hand to stop her. He looked at her with a complicated expression. "I'll do it myself." "Oh." Yan did not understand and handed the jade to him. She watched as Xiao Ju put the jade back on. The black jade fell on his dark blue robe and looked very beautiful. She looked at it seriously. Little did she know that Xiao Ju saw her like this and narrowed his eyes. He immediately turned around and pulled down his robe. Was he stung by an insect? Yan was puzzled. Inside the martial arts arena, the soldiers' loud orders could be heard. Yan followed him to the edge of the balcony and looked down. The South House soldiers were already very organized, and their morale was also outstanding. This kind of strong soldier, he almost scolded them to tears just now. What was wrong with Xiaoju? Wasn't he too picky? If he took over the Fuyue army, he would not have enough time to scold them. He would not even have enough time to eat. He Yan looked and said what was on his mind. She said, "They are training well. You were too fierce just now." "Fierce? Yes." He Yan said. "If it was me, I would have been scared to death." Xiaoju laughed again. Her smile was a little mocking. "I don't think you think I'm fierce. That's because I'm used to being scolded." He Yan looked down at the Nanfu army. "Arrow formation," Xiaoju said. "How is it?" "They are already very well trained. It's just that the snow has been slippery recently. The soldiers on the left of the last row can't keep up." "Other than the arrow formation, what other formations do you know?" Xiaoju asked casually. "And there are a lot." He Yan counted with her fingers. Star scattering formation, mandarin ducks formation, fish loli formation, crane wing formation. She listed more than 10 formations in a row. Seeing that Xiaoju's gaze was focused on her body, she unconsciously stopped and asked, Why are you looking at me?" Xiaoju turned around and placed her hands on the railing of the balcony. She smiled lazily and said, "I'm looking at how good you are, female general." "He Yan." She decided to be thick-skinned and said, "I'm so good. Won't you consider promoting me to be your right-hand man? Our swords together will definitely be able to cut through the universe." Xiaoju sneered. "Who's talking to you about our? Don't keep people at arm's length all the time. You should learn to be approachable like me." Xiaoju ignored her. He Yan was about to say something when a voice called out from behind him, "Young master." It was Fei Nu. "Young master." Fei Nu looked at He Yan. "There's movement in Lei Ho." Xiaoju nodded. "I know." He turned around and walked downstairs. He was probably going to the dungeon. He Yan wanted to follow him but stopped after taking a step. Forget it. If something really happened, Xiaoju would know even if he didn't say anything. If he followed him now, he wouldn't be an eyesore to Xiaoju. It would be better to find Chu Zhao and ask him if she did anything inappropriate to Chu Zhao when she was drunk yesterday. If she did, she would have to line up and apologize. Thinking of this, she waved at Xiaoju. "I still have something to do. I won't accompany you. See you later." The corner of Slave Fei's mouth twitched. Look at how familiar she was. Did someone invite her? Xiaoju was already used to He Yan's shameless behavior. She walked down the stairs and said, "Let's go." When He Yan went to Chu Zhao's room, Chu Zhao was practicing calligraphy. Yesterday, she came in a hurry and it was late at night. She only drank in the courtyard and didn't notice Chu Zhao's room. She only felt that it wasn't luxurious enough. Today, she saw it and realized that it wasn't luxurious enough. It was simple and crude. Other than a table and a bed, there were only 2 chairs in the room. There were no decorations at all. However, this fourth young master Chu was quite happy with himself. He even put incense in the room and hung a gauze curtain. Therefore, the originally simple room looked like a hermit's room. Ing Xiang saw her and smiled. "Young master He, are you here to see our young master?" "Oh," He Yan said. "I came to give fourth young master Chu some snacks." She raised the box. Inside the box was the unfinished scallion oil pastry that Lin Shuanghe gave her in the morning. He Yan originally wanted to leave some for when she was hungry. However, it wouldn't be good to come empty-handed when she came to see Chu Zhao. Thus, she reluctantly considered it a greeting gift. "Fourth young master is practicing calligraphy," Ing Xiang said with a smile. "Young master He, please follow this servant." He Yan followed her inside and saw Chu Zhao sitting at the table and writing. She stood behind Chu Zhao and couldn't help but read aloud. "There is not a speck of dust on the green mountain, not a cloud in the blue sky. There is only one moon in the sky, only one person in the mountain. At this time I hear the sound of the pine. At this time I hear the sound of the bell. At this time I hear the sound of the stream. At this time I hear the sound of insects." As soon as she finished speaking, Chu Zhao finished writing the last stroke. He turned his head and saw her. He smiled and said, "Brother He, you're here." He Yan walked around the words he had written and praised. "Young Master Chu's handwriting is really good." Chu Zhao's handwriting was different from Xiaoju's. Xiaoju's handwriting was sharp and forceful. It carried a kind of cold and unbridled feeling. Chu Zhao's handwriting, on the other hand, was beautiful and gentle, just like the feeling he gave people. His poems were also simple and elegant. It was really hard to imagine that he would be related to Su Jingfu. However, when she thought about Su Jingfu, if He Yan wasn't close to Xiaoju now, and if she hadn't heard Ding Yi's words before, in her heart, Su Jingfu would just be an honest and upright old prime minister. Brother He, why did you come to see me? Chu Zhao stood up and put away the pen and paper. He brought He Yan to the only table in the room and sat down. The 2 chairs were just right. He said to Ing Xiang, pour some tea for young master He. Ing Xiang smiled and went to get the tea. He Yan said, I didn't come to see you for anything. It's just that I drank 4th young master Chu's Chong and Chun last night. I felt bad, so I sent you some snacks. She motioned for Chu Zhao to look at the box of snacks on the table, but she was too embarrassed to open it. After all, it looked too simple. Thank you. Chu Zhao was very considerate. I just wanted to try the snacks of the Liang Province Guard and see how they are different from the ones in Shua. Brother He sent them just in time. Ian coughed twice. I almost forgot to ask 4th young master. Last night I drank 2 cups too much. I didn't cause any trouble for 4th young master, right? She scratched her head. I like to talk nonsense when I'm drunk. If I said something wrong, 4th young master, please don't take it to heart. Chu Zhao looked at her and smiled. Brother He, you didn't come to my place today just to ask me this, right? Look, as expected of the current prime minister's favorite student. He was so meticulous that she had nothing to say. As if he could see He Yan's awkwardness and embarrassment, Chu Zhao smiled and said, Don't worry. Brother He didn't do anything last night. All you did was talk to me about the art of war. It's just that I don't know much about the art of war, so I couldn't ask Brother He for advice. I wasted Brother He's effort. He looked at He Yan and sighed. I'm just surprised that Brother He knows so much. Yan. She silently reflected on herself. In the future, she would never call other people peacocks again. Looking at her drunk appearance, she was the peacock, okay? It was too embarrassing to go around showing off how much she knew when she was drunk. 4th young master, you flatter me. He uncovered her face with her hands. If I say more, I'll really be too ashamed to show my face. Ing Xiang came over with 2 cups of tea. She placed 1 cup in front of He Yan and smiled. Young master He, try it. He Yan picked it up and took a sip. She couldn't help but sigh. It's so sweet. Shuajing's tea isn't as bitter as Liangzhou's. Ing Xiang placed the other cup in front of Chu Zhao. It's fine as long as young master He likes it. He Yan looked at the tea in front of her, and suddenly thought of another matter. She looked at Chu Zhao and pretended to casually ask, 4th young master Chu, have you been living in Shuajing for a long time? Yes. Then you should know a lot about Shuajing's news. He Yan looked at the tea leaves floating in the cup and said, I've been in Liangzhou for half a year. Here I've been training hard every day. It's very boring. Ever since I got injured, I didn't even go for daily training. I've been staying in my room all day. I've almost become moldy. It's not easy for a friend from Shuajing to visit. She moved closer and looked at Chu Zhao with a burning gaze. 4th young master, can you tell me about the interesting things that have happened in Shuajing in the past half a year? Interesting things. Chu Zhao was stunned. Ian nodded. That's right, it's something fun. That's a lot. Chu Zhao said warmly. Brother He, what kind of things do you want to hear? What kind of things? Ian thought for a moment. I don't think there's anything particularly interesting about ordinary people. Let's talk about Shuajing's official family. For example, the old master was caught red-handed with his wife. Which family's son wasn't their biological son, but was actually adopted? Even though Chu Zhao always had a good temper, he was still choked by He Yan's words. He slowly opened his mouth. I don't know much about these private matters. I'll pick some that I know and tell Brother He. He Yan hurriedly nodded. Then she listened to this 4th young master of Count Shijin's Fu talk about all the officials in Shuajing. However, she didn't hear any of the so-called interesting things. It was nothing more than someone who had been promoted, or someone whose salary had increased by 2 shur. Someone whose memorial was too ugly and was disliked by the emperor. Someone's wife received a rare piece of cloth and gave it to an imperial concubine to please her. Fourth young Master Chu was handsome, had a good temperament, and was patient. He wasn't like Xiaoju who got impatient quickly. However, Hien almost lost her patience when talking to him. She endured and endured. After drinking 2 cups of tea, she still hadn't heard what she wanted to hear. She couldn't help but interrupt Chu Zhao. Fourth young Master Chu, when you were in Shuajing, did you know the current General Fei Hong? As soon as she said this, Chu Zhao paused. He picked up his tea and took a sip. He asked with a smile, "Why are you suddenly talking about him?" Every day when I was in the Liang Province Guard, the instructors were always privately discussing who was more powerful, General Fengyun or General Fei Hong. I see General Fengyun every day now, so there's nothing strange about her. However, I've never seen General Fei Hong. She smiled. You also know that General Fei Hong and I both have the same surname. Perhaps we were from the same family in our previous lives. I just want to hear what's strange about him. Is he really that powerful? Chu Zhao looked at Hien. After a while, he shook his head and said with a smile, General He and I are only officials of the same court. We're not familiar with each other. I've only seen him a few times. He's a good person and very powerful. Back then, he quelled the chaos in Xichang. He was very brave. What about now? Has he been promoted in the capital? He was originally a third-rank military general. If he was promoted too quickly, people would talk behind his back. Chu Zhao said, however, His Majesty appreciates him very much. Every few days he would summon him into the palace and have him teach His Highness the Crown Prince swordsmanship. It seems that in the future, he won't be worse than military governor Xiao. He Rufei had already reached this level? Hien's smile froze. Chu Zhao asked, What's wrong? Hien picked up her cup and took a sip to cover it up. She said, I'm just sighing. We both have the same surname, and he's only a few years older than me. However, his achievements are something that I can't achieve in my lifetime. Brother He, there's no need to belittle yourself. Chu Zhao comforted her with a smile. General Fei Hong also risked his life on the battlefield to achieve his achievements. Moreover, you're still young. In the future, you might not be worse than him. Her words didn't comfort Hien. She raised her head again, and that heartless smile appeared on her face again. Is that all? What about the rest? General Fei Hong should be engaged at his age. Could it be that he doesn't have a girl he likes? If that's the case, wouldn't it be too tragic? The Wei's 2 famous generals, Feng Yun and Fei Hong, are they going to be single for the rest of their lives? Chu Zhao paused for a moment. Then he smiled and said, I don't know about that. However, up until now, there hasn't been any news of General Fei Hong getting engaged. Hien nodded. Why? Chu Zhao smiled and looked at her. Brother He, you have a sister at home. Do you want to? No. Hien hurriedly waved her hands. I only have one younger brother. I've never thought about this. This is General Fei Hong. How can ordinary people like us be related to him? I don't dare to think about it. Chu Zhao nodded thoughtfully. In the dungeon, Xiaoju sat on a chair and looked at the person in the cell. More than 10 days had passed. Lei Ho's entire body was shockingly thin. It was as if he was a completely different person from 10 days ago. He also did not sleep well. His entire body seemed to be tormented by nightmares. His eye sockets were deeply sunken. The originally tall man had become much more stooped. Fei Nu delivered the letter and said in a low voice, We've found the person who met Lei Ho. The letter came from Jiang. Jiang? Xiaoju raised her eyebrows. That's right. Xiao Huaijin. Lei Ho opened his mouth. His voice seemed to have been burned by fire. It was extremely hoarse. It was as if he would not be able to speak in the next moment. His lips were cracked and bloodshot. He said, I've already written a letter to the person who met me as you said. According to the agreement, you can let my wife and son go. Xiaoju glanced at him and smiled. In your eyes, am I such a person who keeps her promises? You. Lei Ho's expression changed greatly. He suddenly stood up. However, his hands and feet were shackled. As soon as he moved, there was a rustling sound. These days he had eaten very little. His entire body was weak. When he moved, he did not reach Xiaoju. Instead, he fell to the ground. The young man sat on a chair and looked down at him with his head tilted. It was as if he was admiring his sorry state. After a while, he slowly said, "I only said that I would consider it." As a prisoner, he had to have the self-awareness of a prisoner. Lei Ho finally realized that from the moment he stepped into the Liangzhou guards, he was destined to be a prisoner. He was no match for this man. When he was 16 years old, he could drown 60,000 people in Gua City. He could also kill Zhao Nua without batting an eyelid. His ruthlessness and methods were unparalleled. "I beg you." He slowly knelt down and kowtowed to Xiaoju. "Let my wife and son go." The man looked at him for a moment. Then he slowly said, "Okay, let me ask you again. Do you only communicate with the person who met you through letters?" Yes. Since he had already decided to surrender, his goal was only to ask Xiaoju to let his wife and son go. Therefore, he told him everything, hoping that the man in front of him would be lenient. He said, "We send a letter every month. The person who met me was in Shuajing. Then he went to Jiang. That's all I know. If you want to find him, go to Jiang. You'll definitely find him." Jiang City. Xiaoju muttered to himself and looked at him. Jiang City doesn't allow foreigners to stay for long. What identity did your person use to enter the city? I don't know, Lei Ho said. I only know that he lives in Jiang's Tsuewe Pavilion. Tsuewe Pavilion. Xiaoju stood up and said, I understand. Xiao Huaijin. Military Governor Xiao. Lei Ho stopped him and crawled 2 steps forward like a dog. He rushed in his direction and said, I've already told you everything I know. Can you let go of my wife and son? The handsome young man stopped at the door. He didn't turn around and said in a mocking tone, There's no hurry. Maybe you'll remember something in a few days. It won't be too late to let them go then. He turned around and walked out. Chiwu was waiting outside the door. When he saw him, Chiwu said, Young master, there's news from Wanning. Xiaoju said, Speak. We've found Chai'anqi's whereabouts. Chai'anqi is now in Jiang. Jiang. Xiaoju turned around. Chiwu didn't know what happened in the dungeon. He hesitated and said, Is there something wrong? Fei Nu followed behind him and said with a serious expression, The messenger Lei Ho mentioned is also in Jiang. Young master, are you suspecting that? Fei Nu was surprised. The person who secretly met with Lei Ho is Chai'anqi? I can't be sure because I haven't seen him. But, Chiwu couldn't help but ask, Jiang is a vassal state's territory. People outside the vassal state are not allowed to stay for long. Even if they want to stay for a short time, they need a pass. Even we can't go as we please. How did Chai'anqi get in? How could he stay in Jiang for so many days? Could it be a trap? Who knows? Lei Ho didn't say anything either. Fei Nu glanced at Xiaoju's expression and asked carefully, Young master, should we think of a way to go to Jiang first? That's easy for you to say. Chiwu poured cold water on him. When old master was still alive, he passed by Jiang and stayed there for a few days. However, King Mengji refused to let old master's soldiers enter the city. He said that we need a pass. We have to go to the magistrate's office to get the pass and report it to the palace. We can't make it public. What should we do? There's no hurry. Xiaoju played with the longevity lock in his hand. Let's wait for a few more days. Chiwu and Fei Nu looked at each other. Fei Nu saw the longevity lock in his hand and remembered Lei Ho's words in the dungeon. He asked, Young master, Lei Ho's wife and children are still being watched by our people. Should we continue or? There were people in the capital who were watching Lei Ho's wife and children. Although they were locked up these days, they didn't do anything to harm them. News came from Jiang. Looking at Lei Ho's expression, it didn't seem like they could squeeze any more information out of him. How to deal with his wife and children was still a problem. Xiaoju's gaze fell on the longevity lock in his hand. He laughed and casually threw it to Chiwu. Chiwu, young master? He turned around and walked forward lazily. Let it go. Chapter 123. This winter in the Liangzhou Guard was extremely cold. It snowed heavily for half of the month. Even if it wasn't snowing heavily, the sun rarely came out. There was a shortage of firewood and charcoal. Fortunately, after the new Liangzhou County Magistrate took office, He took the initiative to send some charcoal from the county government's warehouse to the guard office as a way to establish a good relationship with the right army's commander-in-chief. The new county magistrate was still very young and didn't have anyone to rely on at home. He looked gentle and weak, but he was very experienced and thoughtful. Lin Shuanghe was very satisfied with this new county magistrate. In the blink of an eye, 2 months had passed. The year was coming to an end. Soon it would be the new year. After the new year, it would be another spring day. The new recruits of the Liangzhou Guard would no longer be called new recruits and spend the new year here. In the room, Xiaoju was talking to Qi Wu and Fei Nu. There's another letter from the vassal territory. Qi Wu took out a letter and handed it to Xiaoju. There's one every month. This is the second one. Other than the instructor, Qi Wu, and He Yin knew that Lei Ho had been captured and locked in the dungeon. The new recruits of the Liangzhou Guard didn't know. Thinking that Lei Ho had become a deserter, Xiaoju ordered Lei Ho to continue communicating with the person hiding in Jiang. He lied that he had escaped from the Liangzhou Guard and was hiding from the soldiers chasing after him. He also asked what he should do next. The person in Jiang was very cunning. He didn't directly tell Lei Ho what to do in the letter. He only told Lei Ho to hide well, and that his master would send someone to pick him up. Xiaoju took out the letter and read it quickly. Then he handed it to Fei Nu. After Fei Nu and Qi Wu read it, their expressions turned ugly. The person in the letter said that since Raidamuzi had been exposed, the Liangzhou Guard's chess pieces were useless. He told Lei Ho to find a way to hide and wait for the storm to blow over before the people from Shuajing came to pick him up. After this letter, they should not continue to write to each other. In these troubled times, if they were to act rashly and alert the enemy and spoil the plans of their superiors, it would not be something that the two of them could bear. What should we do? Qi Wu said. Does this person mean that he won't send any more letters in the future? Xiaoju. Lei Ho is already useless. But Jiang. Fei Nu hesitated for a moment. Is the commander-in-chief planning to go to Jiang? Even if there wasn't a messenger, I would still make a trip there based on the fact that Chaianqi is in Jiang. Xiaoju placed the letter on the burning candle on the table. The flame licked the letter, and in a moment, it turned into ashes. Chaianqi was Xiao Zhongwu's former general. In the Battle of Mingshui, Xiao Zhongwu and the tens of thousands of soldiers he brought with him were all killed, including his generals. At that time, Chaianqi's corpse was not found on the battlefield. However, everyone thought that he was most likely dead. A few years had passed, and Xiaoju had been sending people to secretly investigate Chaianqi's whereabouts. Now his efforts had paid off. Chaianqi was not dead, and he had even gone to Jiang incognito. Jiang was the territory of King Mengji. If people from outside Dawei's territory wanted to enter the city, they had to obtain a pass from the government. Even if they obtained a pass, outsiders could not stay here for long. Chaianqi had lived here for a long time, so it was no wonder that others could not find his whereabouts. But how do we go to Jiang? If we ask the government for a pass, Su Jingfu's people will be able to find out. Won't they be able to control our every move? Fei Nu asked. Xiaoju turned around, thought for a moment, and said, Do we use another method? Qi Wu. What method? Find someone who has a pass to go to Jiang, and change their identity. This slave Fei was in a difficult position. When Mengji King was still alive, he was extremely strict on the way in and out. Even if there was a pass, there was also a record and a portrait of the person. Moreover, because it was very troublesome to enter the territory of the vassal state, the people of Dawei dealt with it by not going there if they could. Throughout the year, there were very few people who had a pass to go to Jiang. There were not many people in the first place, and the customs were very strict. It was not easy to ask someone to change their identity with Xiaoju, even if they were not allowed to enter the territory again if they were found out. Let Luaning handle this, Xiaoju said to Qi Wu. Write a letter to Luaning immediately and tell her to prepare as soon as possible. Qi Wu. Yes. As they were talking, someone pushed open the door and entered. It was Lin Shuanghe. Qi Wu nodded at him. Young Master Lin. Lin Shuanghe also smiled at him. Fei Nu also tactfully left. Huaijin, what have you been busy with these days? Lin Shuanghe waved his fan. It's almost spring now. Do you know how many times I've seen you? Are you bored? Xiao Ju said. When Cheng Lisu returns to the capital, you can go with her. Forget it. Since I'm already here, why should I go back? He said. When are they leaving? In 2 days. After the incident with Muzi, the Liangzhou guards were no longer safe. There might be changes in the future. It was not suitable for Cheng Lisu and Song Taotao to continue staying here. Xiao Ju had already ordered people to leave for Shu'a in a few days. The two children were naturally unwilling and argued for a long time. However, with Xiao Ju involved, there was no reason why it could not be done. No matter how dissatisfied they could only accept Xiao Ju's arrangement. I won't say anything about Cheng Lisu, but Song Taotao, that little girl, is actually willing to let go of Hiyan? Lin Shuanghe said in disbelief. She almost grew up on Hiyan? She's going to go back just like that? Why don't you ask her? Xiao Ju sat down on a chair and poured himself a cup of tea. He drank lazily. He had been busy for a long time, but he only had a short break. Cheng Lisu sat on his soft couch and looked at him. It's fine if you ignore me. After all, we've known each other for so many years, so I won't argue with you. However, how can you ignore my Mimi? Although military matters are important, my Mimi is also important. Don't blame me for not warning you. If you continue like this, when Mimi is taken away by Chu Xilan, you won't have anyone to cry to. What does she have to do with me? Xiao Ju frowned impatiently and said, What's wrong with Chu Xilan? Lin Shuanghe rested his chin on the handle of his fan and said calmly, I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but for the past month, I've always seen Mimi and Chu Xilan talking together. She's a girl and she's injured. She can't train every day and is bored. I don't know why Chu Xilan came to Liangzhou. It's already been 2 months and he hasn't mentioned when he's leaving. He's bored and Mimi's bored. When the two of them get together, they're already close. Anyway, Mimi used to call him fourth young master Chu. 2 days ago, I heard her call Chu Xilan brother Chu. If this continues, won't you panic? Xiao Ju was confused. Why should I panic? Why don't you think about it? If younger sister he is kidnapped by Chu Xilan and used by Chu Xilan, the Liang province guards will have one less peerless genius in both civil and military strategy. You are pushing away a capable general. Xiao Ju sneered. Do you think there's no one in the Liangzhou guards? Anyway, I've never seen a girl like her before, Lin Shuanghe said. Chu Xilan is used to pleasing girls. Originally, you were born better than him, and you're more capable than him. However, your personality is still more gentle and kind. Which girl wouldn't like to have such a good-looking rich young master accompanying her gently every day? Like. Xiao Ju's beautiful eyes narrowed and her voice was filled with mockery. You're only 16 years old. Yet you know what it means to like. So what if I'm 16 years old? Lin Shuanghe said. In Shu'a capital, many girls at 16 years old are already married. So. Xiao Ju picked up her tea and took a sip. She said indifferently. At 16 years old, other than her father and brothers, how many men have she seen? Since she hasn't seen many men, how can she know what it means to like? Saying that she likes peonies after only seeing peonies is different from saying that she likes peonies after seeing hundreds of flowers. Liking when you have a choice is also different from liking when you don't have a choice. What you're saying is meaningless. Lin Shuanghe rolled his eyes. Most people in the world are normal people. Of course, they follow the rules of normal people. Normal people are like this. They get married at 16 and spend their lives together. It's not like they don't have a lifetime of happiness. There are even more unhappy people. Xiao Ju said. Normal people don't have a choice, but I do. Lin Shuanghe was completely speechless. He said, Okay. You have it. But according to what you said, the only girl you can find who's seen hundreds of flowers is Mimi He. Mimi He didn't just see hundreds of flowers in the Liang province guards. There are tens of thousands of men in the Liang province guards, and she's also seen tens of thousands of flowers. If she sees tens of thousands of flowers and likes you, that's great. But if she sees tens of thousands of flowers and likes Chu Xilan, Lin Shuanghe gloated. Wouldn't that be a huge blow to you? You're thinking too much. Xiao Ju said. Whoever she likes has nothing to do with me. However, Chu Xilan is Su Jingfu's son-in-law. She can like Chu Xilan. Xiao Ju's lips curved. As long as she's not afraid of death. Lin Shuanghe was stunned. Oh right. I almost forgot. Chu Xilan is Su Pingting's man. When Lin Shuanghe and Xiao Ju talked about Chu Xilan, He Yan had just arrived at Chu Xilan's door. Ying Xiang smiled and welcomed her in, saying, "Young master He, you're here." Then, she looked behind her and said jokingly, "Miss Song didn't follow me today. Thank goodness." Song Taotao guarded Ying Xiang tightly. As soon as He Yan went to find Chu Zhao, Song Taotao would be alert and follow him. After all, Ying Xiang was beautiful and charming. She wasn't as cold and aloof as Shen Muxue. To men, she was more attractive. "She's packing her things." He Yan smiled. "In a few days, she'll be leaving the Liang province guards. She can't follow me around every day." Speaking of this, He Yan felt a headache coming on. When Song Taotao found out that she was going to return to Shuajing, she cried and threw a tantrum, unwilling to leave no matter what. She and Cheng Lisu reached an unprecedented agreement and almost tore off the roof of the Liang province guards. In the end, Xiao Ju had to personally come out and subdue the two children. Only then did she agree to follow Xiao Ju back to the capital. That wasn't all, but Song Taotao even tried to take He Yan with her. "Whatever second young master Xiao promised you, my Song family will triple it. Don't stay in the Liang province guards." The little girl looked at her with disdain. "The Liang province guards is such a cold place. If you're not careful, you'll lose your life. I heard Cheng Lisu say that if you want to make a name for yourself, why do you have to walk this path? You've risked your life here, and haven't even been promoted. Too pitiful." He Yan thought, yes, too pitiful. "My Song family is different," Song Taotao said seriously. "Although my father can't call the wind and summon the rain in the capital, he can still help you a bit. You'll have a much better future in my Song family than in Liang province. As for the military registry, you don't have to worry. As long as I tell my father, he'll find a way to set you free." He Yan. No, I'm fine in Liang province." Song Taotao's gaze was like a knife. "Don't tell me you don't want to let go of that maid called Ying Xiang?" The little girl was young, but she was quite shrewd. He Yan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "That's not it. It's just that my status in the Liang province guards is special. If Miss Song wants me, you can go directly to Military Governor Xiao. If Military Governor Xiao is willing to let me go, of course I'll follow Miss Song back to the capital." Would Xiao Ju let him go so easily? Of course not. The Liang province guards weren't the backup army of the capital's son-in-law. If she took the lead, what would the other recruits think? It was better to curry favor with a rich young lady than to fight to the death. If this continued, the Liang province guards wouldn't even need to be attacked by the enemy. Once the soldiers' morale dropped, they would be gone in 2 years. Xiao Ju wouldn't let that happen. Bringing up Xiao Ju was still quite shocking to the little girl. Song Taotao immediately gave up and no longer mentioned bringing He Yan back to the capital. She walked into the room and saw Chu Zhao feeding the birds. He Yan felt that Chu Xilan was a very interesting person. If he wasn't gardening, he was writing, and if he wasn't writing, he was feeding the birds. His life was like that of an old man in his 60s or 70s in the capital. However, he had stayed in the Liang province guards for 2 months. Since he was so carefree, wouldn't it be better to go to the capital and relax? Why come here to suffer? There wasn't even a lot of coal here. However, even so, He Yan was still willing to run over to Chu Xilan's room. There was no other reason. Chu Zhao was a very patient person. He Yan couldn't go to the practice field to train anyway. It was good to listen to Chu Zhao talk about the interesting things in the capital. In her previous life, she had been fighting outside. When she returned to the capital, He Rufei had replaced her. She didn't know much about the Shua capital's officialdom. She didn't know much about her colleagues. In the past, it was fine. However, after doing a few things with Xiao Ju, He Yan knew that if she really wanted to start over, she had to know the power structure of each party. At least she knew the general situation of the Crown Prince's faction, Prime Minister Su's faction, and Xiao Ju's faction. He Yan learned a lot from Chu Zhao. She didn't want to be too hostile towards Chu Zhao. Moreover, this person really didn't do anything to her in the beginning. Today it was Chu Zhao who ordered Ing Xiang to come over and talk to Hien. Brother Chu, she said. Chu Zhao put the last bit of bird food into the bowl. The bird flapped its wings and let out a clear cry. This kind of cold weather was really not suitable for raising birds. Therefore, Chu Zhao placed all of his charcoal near the bird cage. He was also very considerate and gentle towards birds. You're here. Chu Zhao smiled as he walked to the basin to wash his hands. Brother Chu, why did you ask Ing Xiang to come find me today? Hien asked tentatively. Normally, Hien was the one who took the initiative to talk to Chu Zhao. It was rare for Chu Zhao to take the initiative, so there must be something important. It's nothing. Chu Zhao smiled as he invited Hien to sit down. I might be going back to the capital in a few days. Before I leave, I want to say goodbye to Brother He. Hien was startled. You're going back? That's right. Chu Zhao smiled. I've already stayed in Liangzhou for 2 months. It's a long journey. By the time I get back, it will already be spring, he said. I'm indebted to Brother He for taking care of me these past 2 months in Liangzhou. It was very interesting. Brother He is very considerate. You're too kind, Hien hurriedly said. It's not me taking care of you. It's you taking care of me. The people who will come to pick me up will probably arrive in a few days. Chu Zhao smiled. I don't think it will snow for the next few days. Why don't we set up a pavilion banquet on Baiwa Mountain and drink farewell wine with Brother He? The commander-in-chief doesn't allow us to go up the mountain without permission. Hien was in a difficult position. Brother Chu also knows that I can't hold my liquor well. If I get drunk, it will inevitably cause trouble. When Chu Zhao heard this, he smiled and shook his head. It's fine. We won't go up the mountain. There's a pavilion at the foot of Baiwa Mountain. From there, you can overlook the Wulu River and see the best moonlight. It's fine at the foot of the mountain. As for wine, even if Brother He wants to drink, I don't have any. I'll use tea in place of wine. It's fine as long as you're sincere. Since he had already said it like this, Hien didn't have any reason to decline. He straightforwardly replied, Of course it's fine. Since Brother Chu is leaving, I naturally should accompany you. When will the pavilion banquet that Brother Chu mentioned be held? I'll make some preparations. Tonight will be fine. Chu Zhao smiled. If it snows at night, there won't be a good moonlight tomorrow. Hien said, Tonight it is. Tonight, I'll definitely talk to Brother Chu all night long. She thought Chu Zhao was about to leave. In the future, who would be able to explain to her the intricate and complicated relationships between the various officials in the capital. It would be better to take advantage of tonight to get as much information as possible, so that it wouldn't be difficult to find such an opportunity in the future. Chu Zhao smiled. Brother He is straightforward. That's right. Hien thought of something. Brother Chu, why do you suddenly want to go back? Didn't you say before that you wanted to stay until the spring weather warmed up a bit before leaving? If you leave now, I'm afraid the journey will be cold. I can't help it. Chu Zhao smiled somewhat helplessly. It's my colleague Hanlin Academy scholar Su Darren, who is getting married. I have to rush back to the capital to attend the wedding banquet. Hien was holding the teacup on the table to warm her hands. When she heard this, she froze. She felt her palms become cold and her heart gradually sank. She almost couldn't control her expression. She stiffly pulled the corners of her mouth and asked, Su Darren? Which Su Darren? His name is Su Zhiheng, the eldest son of the Crown Prince's grand tutor. Chu Zhao curiously said, Haven't I told you about him? This person is erudite and multi-talented. He's well-read and is very outstanding. The steaming hot tea suddenly froze into ice. Hien's fingers curled slightly. Su Zhiheng. Hien didn't know how she returned to the room. She also couldn't remember what Chu Zhao said after that. She only remembered that she tried her best not to reveal any of her emotions, so that others wouldn't notice any flaws. When she returned to the room, she almost couldn't stand properly. She held the head of the bed and slowly sat down on the bed. Chu Zhao's words just now echoed in her mind. Su Darren once had a wife. His eldest brother-in-law is the current General Feihong He Rufei. He Rufei's cousin, the daughter of the He family, married Su Zhiheng for half a year. She lost her sight due to an illness. However, Su Darren didn't dislike his first wife because of this. He searched everywhere for famous doctors and was very considerate. Hien asked, "Very considerate?" "That's right." At that time, the Su family's madam hoped that Su Darren would take a concubine or find another wife for him. Su Darren flatly refused. Unfortunately, Su Darren was unlucky. This spring, when she was alone in the manor, the servants didn't notice and she accidentally fell into the pond and drowned. Su Darren passed away almost a year ago. Su Darren originally told his relatives and friends that he wouldn't marry again in the future. However, he was still young. How could the Su family let him be a widower for the rest of his life? He was so affectionate that even his deceased wife's family couldn't stand it. They chose another young lady from the He family to be engaged to him. She was the daughter of the He family's second branch. She was 3 years younger than the original Su Darren. She was only 17 this year. The daughter of the He family's second branch was only 17 this year. He closed his eyes. That was her biological younger sister. The He family had already planned this. Perhaps it was the result of their discussion with Su Jiheng. Hien had to die. However, once Hien died, the relationship between the He family and the Su family would disappear. This was the result that neither family wanted to see. It was better to exchange one person for the other. Hien's death for a new Su Darren. She held her head. She felt like her head was about to explode. Suddenly, someone's voice sounded. "Big brother? What's wrong?" Hien looked up. It was Chung Lisu. She asked, "Why are you here?" The young boy said, "I knocked on the door for a long time. No one answered. I thought you weren't here, so I came to give you some snacks." He went forward with concern. "Big brother, you don't look well. Is your wound hurting? Do you want me to call Uncle Lin?" Hien waved his hand and forced a smile. "No need. I didn't sleep well last night. I'm a bit sleepy." Chung Lisu didn't doubt him. She nodded. "Okay." She thought of something and curled her lips. "Big brother, you seem to be very busy these days. I have to go back to Shuajing soon. I don't know when we'll meet again. A few days ago, I learned a puppet show with a stick from Coach Ma. How about I show you tonight?" Hien's mind was filled with Chu Zhao's words. How could she be in the mood to talk to Chung Lisu? Moreover, she still remembered her promise with Chu Zhao. She shook her head. "Not tonight. I've already made plans with fourth young Master Chu. We're going to the foot of Mount Baiyue to see the moon." "Why are two men looking at the moon?" Chung Lisu said unhappily. "Besides, how can the moon compare to a puppet show? Don't you see it every day? What's so strange about it?" His ruckus actually pulled Hien's attention back a little. She patiently explained. "It's not just to see the moon. It's just that fourth young Master Chu will be leaving the Liang Province Guard in a few days, so before he leaves, he wants to drink with me. It's good that you have a good relationship with fourth young Master Chu. Don't forget about me." Chung Lisu didn't know about the undercurrent between Xiaoju and Chu Zhao. To her, Chu Zhao was just a good-looking, good-tempered uncle who came from Shuajing with a gift from the emperor. She said, "After all, I've known you for a long time. It's reasonable for you to be more familiar with me. Big brother, you can't abandon me." She was just a little brat. Hien could only coax her. "I know. Today I'll drink with him. Tomorrow I'll see your puppet show. What do you think?" Chung Lisu was satisfied. She giggled. "That's more like it." Chapter 124. After lunch, the soldiers all looked for a warm place to rest for a while. Xiaoju was talking to the deputy commander in the practice field. He was giving instructions for the next month's training. Lin Shuanghe walked over and waved his fan at him from a distance, indicating that he wanted to talk to him in private. Xiaoju finished giving instructions and walked towards Lin Shuanghe. As he walked, he said impatiently, "Didn't you go to the medical center to help?" Lin Shuanghe had nothing to do all day. Recently, the weather had been cold. Shin Muxue took out a large pot of medicinal soup to warm the stomach and distributed it to everyone. Because there were not enough people, Lin Shuanghe volunteered to help. He had always been a gentleman and thought that the soldiers of the Liangzhou Guard did not bathe and smelled bad. After helping for 2 days, he gave up. "I was going to go, but I met someone on the way. A guest came to the Liangzhou Guard, he said. Xiaoju asked who. Lin Shuanghe's face showed a meaningful smile. Su Pingting's personal maid. Inside the room, a young maid stood in front of the door with a smile. She ordered the servant to open the boxes in the room one by one. She said, "These are the gifts that Miss personally chose for fourth young master." The current Prime Minister Su Jingfu had great power. Half of the officials in the court were his students. He had lived for most of his life and had a good reputation. The emperor trusted him. If there was anything he regretted, it would be that he did not have a son. Later, he found a famous doctor to treat him. When he was in his 50s, his wife finally gave birth to a daughter, Su Pingting. He only had this precious daughter when he was old. The Su family was almost completely obedient to Su Pingting. Even the princess was not as pampered as her. Su Pingting was 17 years old this year. She was also a charming little beauty, but her personality was particularly domineering, making it hard for others to resist. Chu Zhao was Su Jingfu's favorite student. He often went to eat with the Su family. After a while, he became familiar with Su Pingting. Little sister Mo Tai must be tired from the long journey. Ying Xiang smiled as she handed over a cup of tea and said, "Drink some tea to warm your body." Mo Tai glanced at Ying Xiang and said with a fake smile, "Forget it. This servant is not used to the crude tea of the Liang province guards." Ying Xiang was not annoyed. She still had a smile on her face as she took the tea away. Mo Tai looked at Ying Xiang's back, and a trace of contempt flashed across her eyes. She cursed in her heart. With such a vixen by fourth young master Chu's side every day, who knew if she would use her seductive methods on his master? Although eldest Miss Su was young and beautiful, she was no match for this bitch when it came to pleasing others. It was not that Su Pingting had never thought of driving Ying Xiang away from Chu Zhao. Unfortunately, Chu Zhao, who had always been gentle, flatly refused to do so. In the end, Prime Minister Su had to personally step in and cover up the matter. Wasn't he just a servant? Was there a need to protect him like this? Mo Tai was dissatisfied, but she could not vent it on Chu Zhao. She looked around Chu Zhao's room. After a while, she shook her head and said, "The place where fourth young master lives is really too shabby. This servant has only stayed here for a short while, but my hands and feet feel cold. There isn't even a charcoal fire here. It seems that fourth young master has suffered these past 2 months." "It's no problem," Chu Zhao replied gently. "The new recruits here are all like this. How can they compare to you?" Mo Tai said, "You can't compare yourself to that lowly bitch." A trace of coldness flashed through Chu Zhao's eyes. When he raised his head again, his expression was gentle again. He asked, "Miss Mo Tai, have you come here for something?" "It's nothing," Mo Tai said with a smile. "It's just that Miss hasn't seen fourth young master for a long time and misses him. She heard that Liang province is extremely cold in winter, and ordered this servant to bring some warm clothing to fourth young master with the carriages." She bent down and took out a fur coat from the chest. She carried it to Chu Zhao and said, "Miss personally ordered people to buy this from merchants. It can be worn to keep out the cold. Fourth young master, do you want to try it?" The fur of the fur coat was smooth and clean, soft and light. It was obvious that it was expensive. Chu Zhao stood up and put on the fur coat. He smiled and thanked her. "It's very warm. Please thank eldest Miss for me." Mo Tai covered her mouth and smiled. "This servant cannot do it for you. If you want to thank her, fourth young master should personally say it to eldest Mississippi." She seemed to have thought of something and asked Chu Zhao, "When does fourth young master plan on returning to Shuo capital?" "It's in these 2 days. This servant thinks that Liang province is not a place for people to stay. If eldest Miss was here, she would definitely feel sorry for fourth young master. How about you set out tomorrow? The earlier you set out, the earlier you can return to Shuo capital. And the earlier you can see eldest Mississippi." She smiled slightly. Before the servant left, Master even mentioned fourth young master to eldest Mississippi. Although she was probing, her tone was unquestionable. She had already made her decision. She did not allow Chu Zhao to refute. Chu Zhao paused for a moment, then raised his head and smiled. "Okay, we'll set out tomorrow. I also miss teacher." "That's great." Mo Tai's face suddenly bloomed like a flower. She urged the servant to take out the things in the box. This box is full of winter clothes. This servant will take them out for you first. After I'm done, I'll help you pack your luggage for tomorrow's departure, she said. I hope fourth young master won't blame this servant for being nosy. How could I? Chu Zhao smiled. I can't thank you enough. Ing Xiang stood behind the curtain and looked at the arrogant Mo Tai in the room. She lowered her gaze and stood quietly for a moment before walking away. It was a winter evening and the sky turned dark very early. The lights in the room were lit up. Lin Shuanghe lay on the bed and spat out the melon seed in his mouth. What's wrong with Su Pingting's maid? She talked to Chu Zhao from day to night and didn't let him leave? Those who don't know would think that she's the real eldest young Miss Su. Isn't it too obvious that she's announcing her ownership? Right now, I feel that Chu Xilin is a bit pitiful. Xiao Ju was sitting at the table and reading military documents. When she heard this, she said, if he's pitiful, you can go and rescue him. Then forget it. Lin Shuanghe sat up and put his hands behind his head. Who's to blame? It's all Chu Xilin's fault. Who told him to be good-looking and gentle? A man like that would be fought over in the capital. He even tried to curry favor with Su Jingfu. It's expected that eldest young Miss Su would like him. Xiao Ju smiled. If he can really become the son-in-law of the Su family, then that's his ability. That's true. Lin Shuanghe deeply agreed with Xiao Ju's words. He was originally ostracized and bullied in Count Shijin's residence. If it wasn't for Su Jingfu, how could he be registered under D Mother's name? If he really marries the eldest young miss of the Su family, Lin Shuanghe said, Chu Xilin will be in charge of Count Shijin's residence in the future. Everyone said that women fawned over those in power, and that if they found a good husband, they would be able to lean against a big tree and enjoy the shade. Who knew if men were different? When there were benefits in front of them, all of their choices were for the sake of living a better life. Whether they liked someone or not, whether they were willing or not, whether they were sincere or not, none of that mattered. It wasn't clear whether it was Su Pingting's sorrow or Chu Xilin's. I think that maid was lying when she said she would take care of him. She was really monitoring him. Lin Shuanghe spread out his hands. Chu Xilin won't be able to sleep tonight. Chu Xilin? Cheng Lisu's head poked in through the window. What's wrong with him? Didn't he go to see the moon with my eldest brother tonight? What do you mean see the moon? Lin Shuanghe asked. We went to the foot of Mount Baiyue to see the moon. I originally wanted to find my eldest brother to watch the puppet show I just learned, but my eldest brother said that he would go see the moon with fourth young Master Chu tonight, so I could only reschedule it to tomorrow. Cheng Lisu looked at Lin Shuanghe, then at Xiao Ju. Uncle, what did you mean by what you said just now? Xiao Ju pushed his head back out of the window and closed it. Go back to sleep. Cheng Lisu smashed the window outside to no avail. After a while he could only leave. After he left, Lin Shuanghe rubbed his chin and asked, my younger sister he and Chu Xilin are going to see the moon tonight? Their relationship is developing so quickly? Xiao Ju continued to read the military documents, too lazy to pay attention to him. No, Lin Shuanghe crawled up from the bed. I have to go take a look. He walked directly to the door between the two rooms, knocked on the door and said, Brother He? Brother He? Brother He, are you there? Let me know if you are. He put his ear to the other side of the door, but it was quiet inside. There was no sound. Lin Shuanghe knocked a few more times, but there was still no response. He took 2 steps back and said to himself, my younger sister he doesn't know that Su Pingting's people are here, so she went to see the moon by herself, right? Why Jean? He shouted. Xiao Ju's ears hurt from his shout. He said impatiently, what? My younger sister he might have gone to see the moon by herself. Lin Shuanghe walked in front of him. Go and look for her. I'm not going, Xiao Ju said indifferently. If you want to go, you go. I want to go, but Mount Baiyue is so big and I don't know the way. What if it's like what happened with Rida Musi, and there are bad people on the mountain? You have martial arts, so you can protect yourself. If I go, I can only lie down and let them kill me. Won't you regret it if I die? Xiao Ju said. No, I won't. Why are you like this? Lin Shuanghe sat on his desk, blocking Junwen. He tried his best to persuade him. Look at my younger sister she's so pitiful. Chu Zhao doesn't know that she's a girl, so he's gentle to everyone. But this is the first time, younger sister. He has met such a gentle person. Girls are very sensitive and are easily moved. But her identity can't be exposed, so she can only hide this love in her heart. Her sweetheart asked her to see the moon, so she must be very happy. But she doesn't know that her sweetheart is already someone else's son-in-law. Now she's alone on the mountain, so she must be very cold and sad. Can't you go and see her? Comfort her? Xiaoju was puzzled by his idea. She likes Chu Xilan, and I'm going to comfort her? What kind of logic is that? Now is a good time for you. Lin Shuanghe encouraged him. Now is the best time to take advantage of her. Xiaoju sneered. Then I won't go. Okay, Lin Shuanghe said. Let's not talk about feelings. She's your soldier, and you're her superior. Younger sister, he helped you protect the Liangzhou guards a while ago, so you should care about your subordinates. I'm her superior, not her father, Xiaoju said coldly. Besides, she has legs. If she can't wait for him, she'll come back. Lin Shuanghe was silent for a moment, then asked him, do you think she's the kind of person who will give up if she can't wait? Xiaoju's hand that was holding the pen paused. The image of the youth running with a sandbag on his back in the martial arts arena appeared in his mind. Yan wasn't the kind of person who gave up easily. Sometimes she was clever and cunning, but sometimes she was stubborn and persistent. It was hard to say whether she was stubborn or stupid, but Lin Shuanghe was right. With her personality, there was an 80 to 90% chance that she would wait for him on the mountain for the entire night. She was crazy. Seeing that Xiaoju's attitude had softened, Lin Shuanghe immediately added fuel to the fire. Think about it, she's only 16 years old. It's already not easy for a little girl like her to get to where she is now in the Liangzhou guards. Now that Chu Xilan gave her such a blow, she's too pitiful. Just treat it as a good thing. Go up the mountain and bring her back. She'll be grateful to you. And she'll have to be more sincere when she works for you in the future. Seeing that Xiaoju didn't move, Lin Shuanghe added fuel to the fire. When Madame Xiao was alive, she was the most benevolent and soft-hearted person. If she saw little sister she'd definitely help. Shut up. Xiaoju couldn't take it anymore. He grabbed the cloak beside him, stood up, and walked out the door. I'll go. Lin Shuanghe looked at his back, extremely satisfied. Now that's a real man. At the foot of Mount Baiyue, there was a huge rock. The huge rock was flat and extended, and it looked like a stone platform. Walking down the stone platform, one could hear the sound of waves at the end. Looking down, one could see the majestic river below. Looking up, one could see the bright moon thousands of li away, illuminating the mountains and rivers. Yan sat down at the end of the shirtu. The sound of water splashing against the rocks in the distance. It was as if the deep ancient sound came from a distant time and space, distant and drawn out. She had arranged to meet with Chu Zhao at 9 o'clock, but she didn't know what time it was. There was still no sign of him. She did find the pavilion that Chu Zhao mentioned, but there were no dishes or snacks in the pavilion, so she didn't know what was going on. Perhaps she should go down and look for Chu Zhao, but once she sat down here, she didn't want to get up again. The forest was covered in snow, and the vast expanse of whiteness covered the mountains. The moonlight shone on the river, clear and carefree. This was an extremely beautiful moonlight, and also an extremely beautiful snow. Yan felt tired. Hugging her knees, she sat and looked at the end of the river. She liked the night more than the day, and she liked the moon more than the sun. This was because when she was Hirufei, the mask never left her body. However, the mask was stuffy and heavy, and she was naughty. She would always secretly take off the mask in the middle of the night for a stick of incense to burn. No one could see her true appearance under the mask, except for the moon outside the window. She stretched out her hand, trying to catch the moonlight hanging in the distant mountains and rivers. The moonlight gently fell on her hand, as if it would stay for her forever. What are you doing? Someone's voice came from behind her. Yan turned around and saw a young man wearing a fox fur coat and embroidered clothes coming from the depths of the night. He was very tall, and he looked cold and handsome. It was Xiaoju. Yan was startled and subconsciously looked behind him. Xiaoju saw her and sneered. Chu Xilan is not coming. Why? Yan asked. Xiaoju looked at her and said, someone from the capital is here. He has something to do and can't leave. He asked me to pass on the message. He Yan nodded and looked at him in surprise. The governor is actually passing on a message for fourth young master Chu? Xiao Ju and Chu Zhao were like fire and water. It was already incredible that Chu Zhao asked Xiao Ju to pass on a message. It was even more shocking that Xiao Ju actually listened to him and came here to find her. You still care about this. It seems like you're not very sad, he said and sat down on the other side of the huge rock. The winter night wind blew and it was extremely cold. He Yan asked, "Why should I be sad?" As soon as she finished speaking, she sneezed. Although it was winter clothing, it was still unbearably cold to come out at night to be blown by the wind. She sat stiffly, her face pale from the cold, like a piece of green jade, with a kind of fragility. Xiao Ju was silent for a moment. The next moment she stood up. Just as He Yan was about to raise her head, a fox fur coat covered her head, causing her vision to darken. When she came out of the fox fur coat, Xiao Ju had already returned to her original position and sat down. The fur coat was slightly warm and blocked the wind and snow. He Yan was stunned for a long time before she said, "Thank you." Xiao Ju turned her head and glanced at her. The young girl's hair was tied up, and she was wearing his black fur coat. Her shoulders were very narrow and she looked very frail. She used to be noisy and chatty all day long, and only felt that it was a headache. However, when she was quiet, it was as if she had turned into another person. It made people feel uncomfortable. Xiao Ju lowered her eyes and looked at her. After a while she smiled. "You look so bitter and resentful. It's really ugly." She paused and said, "You can't bear to leave Chu's island." "What?" He Yan was confused. "I didn't see you this depressed even when you were about to die," she said lazily. "It seems like you like him very much." He Yan didn't understand what she was saying. "He hasn't left yet, and you're already so depressed. What will you do when he leaves tomorrow?" Xiao Ju looked at the river in the distance. "Tomorrow?" He Yan was shocked. "So soon?" She remembered that Chu Zhao told her that it would be one of these days. He didn't say that it would be tomorrow. Xiao Ju looked at her with a half-smile. "Are you anxious?" "No," He Yan said. "I'm just a little surprised." She thought of something and said sadly, "Well, he has to make it in time for Su. Master Su's wedding. He has to leave as soon as possible." He Yan asked Xiao Ju, "Do you know the young master of the Su family in Beijing?" Xiao Ju said, "I've heard of him. Su Zhiheng is getting married." Fourth young master Chu rushed back just to make it in time for his wedding. He Yan's voice was dry. "The one getting married is Su Zhiheng, not Chu Xilan." Xiao Ju frowned. "Look at how useless you are now. You still want to join the Nine Flags Battalion?" He Yan forced a smile. Just as she was about to speak, Xiao Ju waved her sleeve and threw something into her arms. He Yan looked down. It was a stick of tonghulu. It had been outside for a long time and was as cold as ice. It was bright red in the snow. Where did you get this?" "It's Song Tao Tao's," Xiao Ju said. "I just took a stick of it." He didn't know how to coax a girl. Before he left, he asked Lin Shuanghe. Lin Shuanghe replied, "If it were someone else, they would have to spend a lot of effort to coax a sad girl. They would have to take her to see the lanterns, the flowers, the stars, and buy jade, pearls, and gold hairpins. But it's different for you. All you have to do is sit there and use your face." Xiao Ju was speechless. When she passed by Shen Mushue's room, she saw the tonghulu that Song Tao Tao had asked someone to buy for her by the window. She casually took a stick of it. The last time she saw her eating it, she was very happy. He Yan picked up the tonghulu, removed the rice cake wrapper, and licked it. The tonghulu was cold and a little sweetness spread along the tip of her tongue. It was so sweet that it made her heart feel bitter. She suddenly remembered the words she said to Chu Zhao. She asked Chu Zhao, "What's the name of the new young mistress Su?" Chu Zhao replied, "He Xining. She's the second daughter of the He family's second branch. She's a cousin of the previous young mistress He. I've met her once. She's innocent and gentle. She's a good match for young mistress Su." "He Xining," Yan muttered. "Do you know the name of the previous young mistress Su?" Chu Zhao was stunned. He hesitated for a moment and shook his head. The previous young mistress Su lived in seclusion. She wasn't in Shuajing before. I've never seen her before. I don't know her name either. She didn't even leave a name. The world remembered General Fei Hong, He Rufei Su Jiheng, and even Su Jiheng's new wife. However, no one remembered He Yan. She thought that after so long, she would know Su Jiheng's true colors and would no longer feel heartache. However, the moment she heard that he was going to marry a new wife, she still felt a strange pain. It was as if the persistence and trust from many years ago had collapsed overnight. She didn't even bother to leave behind a lie. All that was left was her stupidity and unwillingness. She raised her head and looked at the moon. The gentle moonlight spread over the barren mountains and rivers, over the snowy forest, over her desolate and lonely years, and over her eyes under the mask. The moon knew her secret, but the moon couldn't speak. Do you know? She opened her mouth, her voice soft. What's the name of Su Jiheng's new wife? Xiaoju lazily said. How would I know? He Yan laughed self-deprecatingly and asked again. Then do you know what the name of the previous young mistress Su was? The waves of the river slapped against the reefs, as if they had been separated by a long time. He glanced at He Yan indifferently. His eyebrows were unbelievably handsome under the moonlight. A trace of mockery appeared in his limpid eyes. He said indifferently, Why? Do you want to be young Mistress Su just because they have the same name? He Yan was stunned. Do you know her name? Her heart began to beat wildly. Yan. The waves fell on the reefs and were broken into tiny droplets of water that merged into the river. It was impossible to tell where the waves came from. However, He Yan's name was remembered. He Yan suddenly raised her head and looked at him. Do you know, have you seen young Mistress Su? She said in her heart that it was impossible. She and Xiaoju were schoolmates for less than a year before they went their separate ways. When she returned to Shuajing, she became Lady He and was no longer He Rufei. She was quickly engaged and didn't even leave the house a few times, let alone a man. When she married into the Su family, she became blind not long after her marriage. She stayed in the house all day and was almost isolated from the world. How could Xiaoju have seen her? Unless, I have. The young man sat lazily. His eyebrows were charming, and the mountains and rivers were not as bright as the light in his eyes. For a moment, his voice overlapped with the voice of a certain night. It was also a night like this, with mountains like this. The rain continued to fall, and her world was dark and gloomy. It was only a hair's breadth away from despair. Xiaoju said, She owes me a candy.